Chapter 71. Humanity was proud of many of its accomplishments throughout its history. Traversing the seas, heavier than air travel, figuring out how to smash lightning into a rock and force it to think. Computers might as well be magic. It was some of the most simple innovations, however, that even after hundreds or thousands of years, humanity still went back to the basics when necessary. And in the beginning, there was fire. Fire to cook their food, to turn mud into clay, to boil their water and forge metal into tools and heat their homes in the winter. Fire, to beat back the cold and lonely nights humanity found itself in, under the star-filled sky. To Sasuke at this moment, as a blast of phoenix fire littered the space he weaved back and forth through, he was reminded that fire was at the core of the Uchiha clan's philosophy. And as he molded his own grand fireball, heightened more after years of hard work and practice, he released it in a fully white-shifted conflagration of light and heat. Itachi of course had already moved, easily avoiding the large and slower attack that arced away into the sky. Sasuke expected that in the end, his Sharingan matching his brother's, as they danced about each other with the full intent to kill one another. Because in the end they were both Uchiha, fire burned within their souls. They would either be cleansed by it or burned away to ash. Itachi made space for himself, launching several kunai to keep Sasuke unbalanced while he considered his options. You have the Mangekyo, and yet, I see your lover and your best friend still alive. Curious. This confused the older ninja. The Mangekyo was only accessible after experiencing extreme emotions and trauma. Losing a loved one, watching your best friend die. Killing your kin. Those were the only ways to obtain it. As he dived under another grand fireball, appreciating that indeed Sasuke had been training hard, he made a hasty shunshin that placed him just behind the boy, unless this is some trick. Sword out and blocking a kunai that had been aimed at his neck, Sasuke grunted before launching a front kick that sent Itachi sailing away over the rocky terrain. Distance made, Sasuke threw several shuriken before lightning began to flow over his sword. Just like our elders, you misunderstood the Uchiha texts. Rushing forward, Sasuke kept an eye on the dust cloud that Itachi has disappeared into. Which was a good thing, as black Amaterasu fire erupted from its depths that melted his thrown weapons into useless slag. Aborting his attack and jumping high into the air, some quick molded chakra allowed for another hasty shunshin to carry him further as the ravenous black fire tried to follow him. Itachi was frowning, leaking blood as the dust cleared, and he eyed his little brother. Me? Misunderstood the texts? Laughable. Spotting Sasuke standing with a sword wreathed in lightning, Itachi made direct eye contact with his brother. It has to be a trick. He would trap his brother within the infinite world of his Tsukuyomi and interrogate him thoroughly. Feeling Itachi try to use the Tsukuyomi against him, Sasuke allowed a maddened grin to spread on his face as the genjutsu failed to take hold. Tell me, brother. Who subjected me to hours upon hours of mental torture? Dashing forward, he just missed Itachi's neck with the tip of his sword as his brother leaned away with Sharingan-enhanced reflexes. Who made me relive the slaughter of our clan? Another swing was this time deflected by a chakra-enhanced kunai, lightning arcing down into the ground to gouge out a furrow, but still Sasuke pressed on, watching as Itachi began to actually put some effort into this. And who now stands before me, having been used as a puppet for conniving old men? I wasn't the weak one. Chakra flaring, Sasuke just missed Itachi again with a Chidori Nagashi, though several locks of hair were cut free. You blindly followed your orders. You never questioned what would happen afterward. A sheep before a hateful shepherd. Dodging and deflecting ever-increasing precision strikes, Itachi quickly realizing that his younger brother had certainly been training and improving. Deciding to up the stakes, Itachi's lungs began to fill with tightly molded chakra while Sasuke prepared the same hand seals as he. With a shout, both brothers released great fire dragons. The attacks were hot enough to scorch the very earth itself as they raced towards one another, one red and one white. They arced around each other before writhing their way into the sky where they detonated and shook the very air around them. Yet still, Itachi could tell Sasuke was not flagging, keeping up with him step for step. So be it. Diving deeper into the Mangekyo for something more esoteric. You want me to believe I was the weak one? That I was wrong? A few hand signs as Sasuke dashed to close the distance between them, and a back flip over a sword slash allowed him to trail a hand over the rocks. A rock wall soon grew between himself and his brother, giving him time to jump away and carve out more room between them as his chakra began to manifest. I think you are the one that's mistaken. I did what I had to. All for our home, for you, little brother. It was time to show Sasuke the peak of what it meant to be an Uchiha. An explosion rocked the area, Itachi's hastily built wall blown to bits by a wide-eyed Sasuke, black fire trailing away from his eyes. Mangekyo spinning, Sasuke had no issues seeing the ethereal chakra floating around Itachi. To what end, Itachi? The clan is functionally dead. The village never cared about you or our future, only what they could take from us. Matching Itachi, Sasuke began to build up his own chakra. If you wanted to protect me, to help me, why didn't you stay? Sasuke frowned at the chakra-formed bones that began to form around his brother, idly noticing the sky darkening above them. Why didn't you actually try to be my actual brother? The very fires of Amaterasu began to build up around him to copy Itachi, staying in step with the elder Uchiha. A twitch and Itachi paused. He could see it clearly in this moment. There was pure rage on Sasuke's face, hatred and more. Sasuke had known just who and what Itachi was. While some part of his little brother still wanted to save him, to help him, so too he was just as willing to kill him. This was the culmination of centuries of work, from their founders to now. The perfect Uchiha. No, little brother, I don't think I've done anything wrong at all. The bones of the Susanoo grew around him, the otherworldly skeleton building and growing flesh more rapidly with every second, the final ability of the Uchiha clan and the greatest. You hate me, rightfully so. But I did all of this, so that you would reach this apex. This height. Now no one can stop you. Itachi watched as Sasuke easily copied him, a deep blue Susanoo construct much the same as his own if not for the color, both Uchiha brothers rising while sheltered deep within the chests of their techniques. Now, you have one last duty to fulfill. Watching them both from on high, Naruto floated with Sakura on a platform made of earth, having retreated once larger and more deadly techniques started to fly. Rinnegan active and watching, Naruto remains silent while Sakura watches on anxiously. What is this? Sighing, Naruto shakes his head as Sakura leans over the edge of their rocky surface. Sasuke explained it to me once. Susanoo. Born from the abilities of Amaterasu and Tsukuyomi. Tsukuyomi to build the illusion, and Amaterasu to make it real. A technique not seen since Madara himself. Sakura's head snapped to Naruto near instantly. Madara? As in the founding of the modern-day Uchiha clan himself, Madara? The man who fought toe-to-toe with Hashirama the first Hokage? That Madara? Watching Naruto nod slowly, Sakura turned back to watch the brothers face off, ignoring as it began to rain around them. Unreal. Naruto again nods, literally. Reach high enough with this, and even a single person can fight toe-to-toe with Kurama himself. And I don't mean like me with clever explosions and seals, I mean hand-to-hand and raw power. I would still kick his ass. Of course you would, great and powerful Kurama-sama. Was that sarcasm? That feels like sarcasm. Wouldn't dream of it. Stepping forward and sitting down next to Sakura while ignoring the stewing Kurama, Naruto gently placed a hand on her trembling shoulder. Except for one thing. Sakura frowns, what? What's wrong? Sasuke didn't unlock his Mangekyo the same way Itachi or anyone else before him did. He had something else spurred on. Sakura turned back to find Naruto smiling at her gently. What crazy shit did you two get up to without me knowing? Chuckling, Naruto shakes his head, patting her on the shoulder lightly. Wasn't me this time. It was you. Naruto winked at her and grinned as a confused look started to work its way on her face. He told me. Well, no real details really. But late one night alone with you, he had one single thought while you slept. Together, they both watched Sasuke settle within the chest of a great armored warrior that stood nearly 100 meters tall, armed with an odachi in a right arm and a shielded bow on its left. Horned helm on and bright yellow eyes watching Itachi's own similarly armed but unarmored yellow Susanoo, there was a silent standoff before them and Naruto sighed as he continued. What was he willing to do, to protect the one person he loved more than anyone else? In a moment, Sasuke knew without a doubt that he was willing to burn the entire world to ash, if it meant seeing you live on. Naruto again winked at her with a more genuine smile even as her face was aflame in a blush. And in that moment his eyes shifted, power born not from hatred, but from a love so intense and deep that not even the kami could refute it. Naruto knew the feeling. He and Sasuke shared the same thought. That they would rend this world if it meant the salvation of those they loved. Sakura finally shook her head and sat back, taking in the man she loved as he faced off against his older brother. All that. This. Because of me? I mean, the power, yeah. Pretty sure they aren't fighting over you. Accepting the slap to his arm, Naruto grinned and continued, just think, you can say confidently that your man was willing to fight gods for you. Naruto chuckled as the brawler giggled but nodded along. Or, you can say you've got world-ending pus. Naruto easily let the incoming fist smash into his face and launch him into the air. Internally chuckling at the blushing Sakura already turning back to the fight. Asshole. She ignored that he was almost instantly back at her side, still grinning like a loon. Instead, she focused on Sasuke and her own hopes for the future. Still internally, she wished that this fight wasn't necessary at all. That there was some way for the brothers to reconcile. Sasuke stared his brother down, his own Susanoo slightly taller, though they both knew Sasuke's own was much more advanced. We don't have to do this. We can stop. We can finally talk. Look at us. We're all that's left. Isn't that worth something? Sasuke took a step forward, and the Susanoo responded, you said so yourself, didn't you? I've reached this peak now, so why does one of us have to die? Another step and the earth trembled. Do I really have to kill my older brother? The last of my blood? Itachi gave him a mad grin, nodding along, you know how this ends. Either you kill me, or I kill you. There is no in-between. Bringing his left arm up to display the Yata mirror, Itachi drew his sword of Totsuka from its sake jar, my sins cannot be forgiven. You must end the Uchiha. Itachi knew he had more blood on his hands than could ever be cleansed. Forgiveness for someone like him? Never. Sighing, Sasuke nodded and took another step, no. Seeing the puzzled look on Itachi's face, Sasuke shook his head, if you truly want for me to kill you, I can accept that. But the Uchiha won't end. I'll do my duty. Rebuild it into something better. Something that can stand in the light. This hatred, this disease that we hold within ourselves. I'll make sure that that ends with you. Brandishing his bow, Sasuke nodded to his brother, let's finish this, big brother. Itachi nodded, let's. Already his arm and thus his Susanoo was moving forward, liquid form of the Totsuka surging in for the kill only to crash against Sasuke's raised defense, the bow on his left arm taking the damage for him. They sprung apart, Sasuke launching a bolt from his crossbow towards Itachi only for his form to vanish. Mildly surprised, Sasuke was already turning to lock blades with his brother with a sneer. Around them, the earth trembled and broke. Boulders and dirt surged into the air from their footsteps, and landscape changing by their every movement. A Kawarimi, really? Just testing you. They broke apart again, as rain began to fall around them and Sasuke raised his sword to the heavens. Chakra heavy was an understatement for this technique, never mind what he was about to do. This needed to end, now. Fine then, test this. Lightning forming around his Susanoo's sword, the heavens above answered with light and thunder. It was here that Itachi paid attention to the world around them, noticing that the once blue sky had darkened with a storm. He realized that all of the fire techniques so far had been a catalyst to changing the very weather, Sasuke planning it all for this very moment. Clever. As Sasuke slashed his sword forward, he watched as a dragon of real lightning answered his will. Raiten, Koryu no Shuin. Naruto and Sakura watched as a fully natural lightning bolt crashed down into Itachi faster than they could blink. Easily piercing his Susanoo and striking him fully. Rubbing the spots from her eyes, Sakura could barely make out Itachi's body as it fell to the earth while his chakra construct broke apart. What the hell was that? Naruto sighed as he began to bring them down towards Itachi's fallen body, keeping some distance, but closer now in order to hear what was going on. You know how techniques that use natural elements are stronger than those that make the elements from chakra? Naruto watched as Sakura nodded and he continued, turning back to watch Sasuke dispel his own armored form to walk towards his brother. Sasuke had a feeling Itachi had a complete Susanoo at his disposal. So he needed something that could break it. Enter some brainstorming and here we are. Using fire techniques to alter the weather, a little lightning chakra to get the reaction going, and boom. Naruto pointed down as Sasuke stood over a panting and unseeing Itachi, you get one roasted Uchiha. Sighing, Sakura kicked her feet and worried about how this was going to end. He wanted to save him, you know? Sasuke didn't want this to end in a fight. To end in one of them dying. Getting no more than a hum from Naruto, she continued as they descended even further, part of him wanted his brother back. He wanted to make sure the Uchiha had a better chance of not fading away. But now. Matching Sakura's previous sigh with one of his own, Naruto set them down a dozen paces away from Sasuke and Itachi. Letting the platform of earth crumble away below them, Sakura and Naruto took their time walking up to the brothers. We can hope and dream all we want, but reality is often harsh and cruel. Sakura turned back to her brother-in-law, only just seeing something dark stir in those eyes of his, but it was gone in a blink as if she had imagined it. Rinnegan, fading back to natural blue, and Sage Chakra, leaving him as well. What about you? What do you think? I think Sasuke did his best. And that's all we can comment on. Sasuke did his best to ignore the fatigue that had built up in his body as he stood over his older brother. To think, less than 3 years ago, this was a man he had feared more than anyone else. More than anything. A boogeyman that haunted his dreams and even some waking hours. And now here, proof that like anyone else Itachi was still just a man. Sprawled out in a shallow crater, chest heaving erratically, Sasuke finally sighed tiredly, this is over. Itachi nodded along slowly, body cold and chakra all but gone, last task. I know. Sasuke didn't flinch as Sakura came up to his right side while Naruto came to his left. For what it's worth, I really did want us to make peace with one another. Itachi again nods, paradoxical warmth suffusing him slowly as feeling left him, in another life. Maybe. I could have returned. Taken Conan as a bride. Maybe. Been a good uncle to your brats. Yeah. I could have annoyed the shit out of you by constantly pestering you in silly contests. Maybe you could have been a Yuzujonin instead of returning to Konoha. Heh. Yuzunin, huh? Itachi's unseeing eyes began to droop, blood leaking from his lips as the crater of his chest heaved, I think. I would have liked that. Or maybe I would have stolen your woman away, I'm the better looking of us, I think. He could not see his brother, but he could imagine the smirk that just crossed his face all the same. Snorting, Sasuke shook his head, in your dreams, big brother. He gently wrapped an arm around Sakura's waist, pulling her into him, I'll do our clan proud. I'll rebuild us into the clan we were meant to be. The family we should have been. Sakura nodded along, I'll do my part as well, I won't let him fall to darkness. A smile on his lips, Itachi allowed what chakra and life he had left to fade, I believe in you. Little sister. Chest no longer moving, the 3 ninja remaining stood quietly over the fallen Uchiha as rain began to come down in a torrent. None of them moved, Sasuke allowing the rain to mask his tears, while Sakura's shoulders shook and her body was racked with sobs. Naruto wanted to turn away, his own mind going to a dark place as he considered Itachi's words. What was it, truly, that prevented Itachi from giving up this quest for atonement? Could he not see a world where he would have been better spent living to atone for his sins? Where he could have found forgiveness, acceptance, maybe even love? In the end, Naruto had to admit that not everyone could move on from the past. Itachi was one haunted by his sins, and in the end it was better for him to die than it was to live with what he had done. Will that be me, one day? You didn't slaughter your clan or droves of innocent people. No, just countless sound ninja, bandits, and gangs. Sprinkled in with a few despots and wannabe tyrants. Naruto tried to form his thoughts into something more coherent, trying to get this feeling in his chest understood. Will madness like this take hold of me one day? Will I force someone I love to kill me? Kurama sighed, knowing that something was deeply troubling his partner, but not having the time to truly talk to him. If only he could talk to Naruto's girls so they would weasel it out of him, you did all of such for the right reasons. You don't kill for sport, but to protect. You always give others a chance to redeem themselves. You are not a monster. I guess you're right, Kurama. Naruto watched as Sasuke turned dull eyes back to him, you need me, bro? Sasuke sighed, motioning with his head towards Itachi, I'm going to need his eyes. Think you can watch over us while Sakura does this? Naruto nodded resolutely, nothing and no one will touch you, don't worry. Turning away to scan the horizon, he hoped what he was about to ask didn't set his brother off, should we bring him home? Give him a proper burial? Pausing while he was in the middle of laying down, Sasuke stared down into the charred chest of Itachi. Slowly after giving it some real thought, he nodded and continued to lay down, yes. He deserves to rest. Just like the rest of the clan. Thunder shook the heavens above them as he continued rolling over and staring up into the dark sky. His vision was interrupted by a gently smiling Sakura, thank you for being here for this. I love you, Sakura. Blushing and grateful that Naruto didn't get to teasing them, Sakura leaned down and kissed her love once, and I love you. I'll make this quick. She was getting rather good with these eye procedures by this point. Naruto stared out over the ruined and desolate landscape, mind already moving to his two largest concerns. Kumo and Iwa. Just what would he have to do with them soon? Worse, what would they force him to do? Scene change. Yujito wondered at her life and how it had led to here. Loose and flowing blue tunic over fitting blue pants and sandals would place her as much a Uzushio native as any other, if not maybe for her bright blonde hair and dark piercing eyes. And yet, she was left alone. No one bothered her here. There was no ridicule, no missions to complete, no assassinations to carry out. Here as she slurped away at some rather wonderful noodles, she could just eat. And brightly smiling brown-haired I am across the bar was already setting a new cup of tea down in front of her, and she gave a slight nod of thanks. You've taken to business for yourself quite well. Yujito's voice was strong and clear, even if her lower back still twinged from time to time. A wonderful soreness that. Happy kitty. At least the Matatabi was satiated for now. I am nodded and served another patron at her bar, her shop nearly identical to her father's, if not just a little larger. Ramen was fairly popular here. Yeah, I honestly have to thank Naruto and my dad for convincing me to do this. Working efficiently to both work a new set of noodles and taste test another batch of spicy broth, she hummed with some pleasure. It was a challenge at first, but now I have a whole groove going. Eyeing the former Kumo ninja, I am took a moment to relax and wink at her. So. Settling in all right? Making some friends? Tsunami had let slip the arrangement between Naruto and Yujito, and it had sent Ayam into hysterics ever since. She'd need to tease her little brother the next time she saw him. Blushing and occupying herself with her tea, Yujito tried and failed to hide her embarrassment. So, you know? Yup. Giggling even while moving to supply another order, she gave a bright smile to a cleaned-up member of the Chinoite clan as she handed him a new bowl of the Naruto special. Don't worry, I won't tease you too much over it. She completely missed the man's embarrassment, or the not-so-gentle ribbing from his clan mate next to him. Groaning and putting down her cup, Yujito turned tired eyes to the other woman. I'm never going to hear the end of it, am I? I'll live a little. It's all in good fun. Laughing as Yujito slumped in her seat more, there was a bell chime as Ayam's door opened to admit what looked like a couple down on their luck. Hiya there. Grab a seat and I'll be right with you. Obito decided that of all the ideas Kuratsuchi had had so far, this one wasn't the worst. Traveling from eateries to bars and shops, they had been gathering what information they could while disguising it as a vacation. Much better than her initial plan of blowing things up until the Yuzukage arrived. Thank you. His normal voice was still rather rough, but at least he was able to hide his face behind a more normal face mask. Sure, he looked like some beach bum in light gray shorts and a gray hoodie, but he'd rather not show off the ruin of his face. Kuratsuchi was having too much fun to care. Somewhat matching Tobi in a gray and yellow version of her usual attire, though without her weapons and armor, she was having the time of her life forcing the man to pay for everything. Hey shopkeep, what do you recommend? Ayam chuckled as she set about making another order. How about the Naruto special? Lots of protein, some good veggies, and enough spice to free up your sinuses for a week. Sold. One each for me and my man. Kuratsuchi couldn't help but cackle as she just knew Tobi was glaring at her from behind his mask. Serves him right for doubting her. She was in mission mode now, and she did not fail. Shaking her head and offering Yujito a smile, I am set to work. I know you don't fully know yet what you want to do. But my advice? Try a little of everything. Go on a bender. Find a hobby. Get hyperfixated and see where it goes. Find love or don't. String along a bunch of lovers. Learn what your heart likes and what it doesn't. Smile softening into something very genuine, I am watched Yujito return it. You'll get the hang of it, we all do eventually. Finishing up the two new orders, Ayam was around the counter with a tray to carry the bowls and a pitcher of water. Yujito herself stared down into her own half-finished bowl of noodles. Ayam made it sound so easy. You could always visit the stud. Yujito admitted that yes she could while her back again throbbed. You're hopeless. I'm in love. You're in heat, there's a difference. Oh there is, one you'll figure out eventually. Ignoring the long-haired blonde that was muttering to herself, Kuratsuchi beamed at the cheery woman who brought their food. So, we've been hearing all kinds of crazy stuff about the Yuzukage. Like he's 7 feet tall and shoots chakra from his eyes. Laying it on thick, the Iwa ninja idly noted Tobi's bowl was somehow already a quarter empty. When did he do that? Shaking her head as the rumors were getting more ridiculous by the day, Ayam started back to her bar. No, the height is all wrong. Not sure about the chakra from his eyes though, never know with him. Having been in Yuzu long enough by now, she knew better than to give out information to outsiders. And these two practically screamed outsider. But I did hear that he's actually a reincarnated prince. One of her patrons started laughing long and loud, his table joining him. Oh come on Miss Ayam, there's no way that's true. Chuckled and shrugging it off, the restaurant owner was all smiles as she returned to her work. You have no way of proving me wrong though. Enjoying the laughter that rose up above the usual din of separate conversations, she set about her work. The lunch rush would be starting soon after all. Kuratsuchi leaned over to Toby, getting as close as she could. Think she knows more than she's letting on? Toby shrugged. Toby thinks so, but Toby thinks everyone knows more than they're saying. They were outsiders, and obvious ones at that. The trick was gleaming real information from the fake rumors. Nodding and sitting back down to enjoy her food, Kuratsuchi is back to grinning. We have time. Why don't we hit the tower next? I hear there's a memorial there was as recommended to visit at least once. Sure thing, I'll go where you want, so long as I lead. He learned his lesson. Never again. Meanie. Ignoring the bickering couple, Yujito finished off her bowl and motioned for another. Maybe you're right I am. I'll do what you said, and follow my heart. See where it leads me. That's great. So what's the plan then? Well. Blushing and looking away, Yujito eventually turned back with a more confident smirk on her face. I wouldn't mind a second round. She couldn't go out and fight anyone after all. Might as well settle for the next best thing. Be careful, you may just fall for him. Doubtful. Yujito tried not to take Ayam's knowing look too seriously. What could she know? Scene changed. Tayuya was not in the best of moods at the moment. Yes, she knew that Naruto had been pulled away by an emergency, but having to watch over the desk again was not on her list of things to do today. She had planned on lazing around the Uzumaki compound and getting to know the others. But, at least she had Tsunami to keep her company. So Enko and Irika have finally made the move, have they? Tsunami smiled as she relaxed back in her chair, ignoring the pair of Narutos off to the side, continuing to do paperwork. Yes. Apparently Enko led the charge. I'm unsure if they will take up ninja assignments here, however. Tayuya waved the thought away without hesitation. Knowing Naruto, he'll have them signed up and ready to go within a few days. She knew good and well that was his plan when he finally got his sensei and his woman here finally. Poor sods, didn't know what they were getting into. Anything new for you? Like a boyfriend maybe? Or a girlfriend? I don't judge. Putting a hand to her cheek, Tsunami blushed a bit. No. I don't have the time for something like that. Caring for Inari and all of the people of Wave is more than enough for me. Tayuya wiggled her eyebrows. Sure. But I'm sure some nights get a bit lonely, don't they? Even leaders need to take breaks. Something they continually had to remind Naruto of. Smile turning into a smirk, Tsunami turned knowing eyes to Tayuya. You know, you aren't wrong. Say, can I borrow Naruto for a few days? Caught off guard and not missing the snort one of his clones made, she gave the older woman the stink eye. There's no way you're serious. I wonder. I'm pretty sure Naruto is into older women. Nope, go find your own boy toy. Half the city would trip over themselves to have you. Tayuya wasn't worried about Naruto bringing Tsunami into the fold. They all respected the woman heavily. Her and her father. Even still. They all knew there was something between Naruto and Tsunami. They'd rather not tempt fate there. I suppose. Teasing the younger girl was so much fun, especially after whatever it was that Itachi tried to do to her. She needed to have some fun. Do you suppose they'll be alright? So long as Naruto is there, nothing will happen to them. Itachi is probably in about a dozen pieces by now. Tayuya had no doubt that Naruto and Sasuke together would make short work of the Nuke Nin. Talented he was, yes, but against the two of them together? Nothing short of another Kage had a chance by her estimation. Maybe a few of them. Tayuya, Karen is here to see you. Amaru's voice piped up from the intercom, and Tayuya pressed the return button. Sure thing, let her in, I ain't busy. Tayuya looked up and prepared herself for another long speech about funding and future projects. The girl sure didn't know when to relax. Watching Karen walk into the room, Tayuya's mood soured as Karen's shadow followed along in black robes. Oh, right. I forgot you were with her. Karen sighed as the door closed behind her, Kabuto staying to her left and out of the way. We promised to give him a chance touch on. Grunting, Tayuya nodded, though she refused to make eye contact with the snake. Yeah. I remember. Doesn't mean I like him. Closing her eyes and taking a deep breath, Tayuya shook herself and smiled at her sister. So what's up, Karen? It's rare to see you up and out of the basement. Settling herself into a seat while Kabuto remained standing, Karen shrugged. Without Anoka here, the lab gets kinda boring. Plus everyone has harped on me enough, so I'm making sure to take breaks often. Kabuto shrugged. She heard the alert and started to fret, so she decided if information was going to come in anywhere first, it would be here. Reaching back and smacking the man, Karen frowned. That was a secret. Grinning and wondering that maybe Kabuto wasn't all bad, Tayuya turned sly eyes towards Karen, so little Karen was worried. Maybe you are next in line to get knocked up. Karen paused, looking down at her currently very flat belly. Even still, the thoughts and fantasy took hold, and hands rubbed her stomach softly. I don't think I would mind if I was. Blinking owlishly, Tayuya exchanged a glance with Tsunami. Wait. You serious? I thought you wanted to wait. I did. Do. Well. Karen looked up and sighed at the look of concern on Tayuya's face. I don't know. I just. Knowing that most likely the entire clan is together and whole again, that we have a home to come back to, I've just been thinking is all. It wasn't like she was in a rush, of course. More like. If it happens, I don't think I'd mind all that much. Tsunami hummed while nodding. I understand the feeling. Sometimes things just feel right. She hadn't had the itch in a long while, for another child that is. What would it be like, to hold another small life in her arms? Tayuya couldn't refute that. I get it. Receiving a smile from Karen, Tayuya idly rubbed her own stomach. I really do. Giggling, Karen leaned back in her chair. To think you used to be such a tomboy. I almost wondered if you'd ever let a guy willingly touch you. Hush before I remind you why I'm still so scary. No thanks, Mama Tachan. I know better already. They all shared a laugh before Karen sighed and motioned back to the silent Kabuto. I know you probably don't want to hear it from me, but the guy is trying. Tayuya sighed and eyed the glasses-wearing man who was doing his best to seem uninterested in their conversation. I know. Doesn't mean my mind will change anytime soon. She as well as the others knew though that Naruto was willing to give him a chance. And if Naruto could do it, they could as well. But I'll try. Here she held Kabuto's gaze quietly. Don't make me regret it. Kabuto himself bowed his head. I will endeavor to make sure you don't. He didn't have to look to know that the two Naruto's clones had been watching him since he had entered the room, but at least now he knew the young Kage was a man of his word. There was nothing for him to fear here, so long as he followed his rules. I did have a question, however. Raising an eyebrow, Tayuya motioned with a hand. Well, go on, what is it? Kabuto took a moment to really think about how he wanted to word this, before deciding it didn't matter. I know you still have the other Sound 4 members. Are you planning on using them for the future? Tayuya shook her head right away. Not unless we have good reason to. Not every bloodline needs to come back after all. She as well agreed with Naruto's and Karen's assessment of Sakon and Yukon. Plus, we won't experiment on people, we aren't like Orochimaru. Kabuto smiles and nods. I did not assume you were. Only, sometimes having many options is better than having none. Just a thought is all. Karen shrugged. I haven't shown you, but I'm searching for a way to utilize Kimimara's unique bloodline for Uzushio's greater benefit. I'll show you later. I think you could help me. Her medical tubes had seen some improvement after she had healed Isaribi and perfected her transformation. Oh, high praise from you, Karen. Flattery will get you nowhere, Kabuto. Karen idly watched a flock of birds fly by the window, distracted for a moment. Naruto better hurry back. Tayuya nodded. I agree. Let's give him an earful when he returns. Agreed. Karen could admit that without a doubt, Naruto alone was stronger than most. It was just that Itachi was a world-famous ninja, much like Sharingan Kakashi or the Densetsu no Sannin. It was hard to remember that Naruto probably had a dozen different ways he was going to eradicate the other ninja from this world. Which he better have done quickly and not let the older Uchiha get the drop on him. Scene change. Killer Bee did not like this mission, nor did he like his specific orders. It didn't matter that they came directly from his brother, it was still shitty. Standing with his arms crossed and watching the main gate quietly, he ignored Team Samui getting ready just behind him. Samui, however, was much of the same mind, though she had less power to oppose her orders. So, what's the plan? She had heard the rumors that Naruto himself had come and threatened the Raikage directly. That the holding pens being torched had been his doing. Sniffing lightly, Killer Bee shrugged, "It's just as my bro wants. We're 2 teams with 2 targets. You 3 are to capture any of the Uzumaki that the scout team can find and return to Kuma with them." Shaking himself, Bee hardened his gaze, all mirth gone. "I track down the Uzukage and beat the snot out of him. Either to drag him back or to kill him. Whichever I can accomplish." Sighing and staring out over the mountains of their home, Samui shook her head, "We're crossing a line here. One that we can't so easily jump back over." "Doesn't matter. We have our orders." Apparently a team from Iwao was doing much the same, the 2 villages united in this. Troubling. Their stew dash cut off roughly by a burly finger over her lips, Samui shot Killer Bee a glare that would have wilted a lesser man. Only he shook his head at her quietly. "I know how you feel. Really, I do. But it doesn't matter. We have our orders, so we carry them out." Starting to walk as he could tell the quiet pair behind them were ready to go, Bee truly did want to do anything else but this. "We're proud Kumo ninja. We will not fail." Samui watched the larger man quietly for a time, making their way through the gate crowd so they could begin their trek down the mountain. This is going to push the nations into another war. Omoi was the first to grunt at her reasoning, knowing that she wasn't wrong. You would think that Lord Raikage would have taken that into account. Reminding herself that not everyone had her skepticism, Samui reached up to rub at her shoulder. "You're right, of course. If the Raikage has decided on this course of action, then it must be with good reason." What reason that was she couldn't say, but it had to be there somewhere. Right? Bee knew better as the 3 younger ninja talked back and forth. Naruto had rattled a something fierce, and when faced with something unknown, Bee knew that it wouldn't just sit idly and let it fester. No. The best time to put down Uzushio was a few years ago when the rumors started. But the second best time was now. They couldn't let the fledgling nation build any more power for itself. "Bro has things figured out, we should trust him as our Kage." A mantra Killer Bee was having to remind himself of, daily. By the time we make it to the outer edges of Wave, our scouts should have infiltrated the city and put together some detailed maps and information for us. We'll meet up in the woods and formulate a plan with new information once we're there. Karui grunted, "Can't we just mass bomb the place and call it a day? We don't need that trash, do we?" Even now she cared not for the Uzumaki nor the blood that ran through her veins. They were not her clan nor her people. Kuma was her home. Omoi spoke up next to her, "Uzumaki blood offers too many benefits not to try and capture it for ourselves. And maybe, hopefully, this time we can get an Uzumaki a bit more fertile than the ones we had." Omoi had heard that the Uzumaki did something to themselves to make it hard for them to be forcefully bred. Most likely seal-related. But that was fine, hopefully they could snatch someone and not give them a chance to apply such a seal this time. Bee nods quietly, "That's the gist of it. All of this is for the betterment of Kumo. Even if you can only find one Uzumaki, that's more than enough." Suddenly he could feel the years of his life settle off his shoulders. It wasn't a question of whether this was the correct path or not. Bee's job wasn't to think about heavy things like that. The Raikage did that. I thought you better than that." Gyuki's voice was quiet and thoughtful, enough to shake Bee loose from his own thoughts. "I don't want to hear that from you right now." "Oh ho, think you can brush me off now, do you?" "No, I'm sorry. I know this is not right. I just..." Family. A hard burden to ignore. Even still, a new war. All that suffering. Can't something be done to avoid that fate? This was no longer a time of kunai and tanto. Of short-range abilities and efficiency. Techniques and technology had increased what shinobi could accomplish, which meant even more could face destruction in the future. Bee takes time to think that over, secretly wishing for much the same. He didn't want to fight the kid before, when they had found him in the land of hot water. And Bee had been against sending Yujito after him as well. Now? Now this sounded like a suicide mission. "I'd have to disobey, bro, this is bigger than your one village, you know that." I do. It was a thought that had been keeping Bee awake at night ever since Naruto had come to Kumo. Would he disobey the Raikage in order to protect what peace the world had? Doing so would probably force him to kill Team Samui, however, depending on how loyal they were to the village. Not a pleasant thought, and not one he had the energy to think about. I'll think on it. See that you do. Samui sighed and did her best to ignore Omoi and Karui beginning to go off on a tangent. We have at least a week of land travel to get through. Might as well relax while we can. Maybe if there was time she could finally get some answers about Yujito. She still couldn't believe the other ninja was dead. Not without proof. But if she was, maybe then she could close her heart to the task she had been given. Chapter 72. War is coming, Tsunade, we can't ignore that fact anymore. Jiraiya sat on the windowsill not far from Tsunade, who herself was sitting in her chair, deep in thought. Paperwork for the moment done and set aside, she did her resolute best to in fact, ignore him. It doesn't have to though. That's the depressing thought. Tsunade held firm that there had to be a better option here. Inoki and A were both known variables. One was a stubborn old goat who was happy to play isolationist while griping about the good old days. While the other, while pig-headed and quick to anger, could be made to see the sensible side of things when pushed. One way or another, she could probably either talk them down or exude some Konoha force in order to get them to back down. But united as they were, she doubted the usual tactics would work. They didn't just want the Uzumaki clan dead and Uzushio reduced to rubble, it was almost a visceral need for the two of them. And Naruto. He would raze both villages to the ground if even one Uzushio citizen fell. Jiraiya wasn't privy to her thoughts, but had a feeling he didn't need to be. Word on the wind is that Iwa and Kumo are both making moves. It's small right now. Iwa has sent a scouting party to Wave and Uzushio, but I have to assume Kumo has done the same. He shrugged when Tsunade turned a hard face towards him. Scouting is normal, yeah, I know. But not in these numbers. Either they're vastly underestimating Naruto, or they just don't care. Or worse, they're attempting to provoke a response out of the Gaki. Waking that particular dragon would have the world redrawing some maps. Sighing heavily and leaning back to stare up into the ceiling, Tsunade finally nods as a hand comes up to rub at her temple. Look into it more thoroughly. I want numbers, plans if possible, their objectives. Something and anything to pass along to Naruto. If you have opportunities to sabotage, do so. As bad as her headache was getting, even drinking didn't sound fun at the moment. Shame that. Okay, I'll get right on it. Turning a tired eye out onto the Konoha skyline, the Toad Sage shook his head slowly. Keep up your guard, just in case. Konoha is still strong, but you never know. Kumo and Iwa might start getting ideas. He wouldn't put it past the pair to attempt to rush on Konoha if they felt like Tsunade's attention was being drawn elsewhere. They wouldn't try anything with us, not so soon after the summit. Tsunade was sure about that. Those two were happy to return things to the old way, and Uzushio was their target for now. They wanted to squash this new player quickly. If anything, we could probably stand to put a few roadblocks in their way. Maybe a hunter squad or two to root out scouts. Some Umbu to coincidentally make it to Wave at the same time perhaps? No, that might be too obvious. Turning back to his longest friend and teammate, Jiraiya waved a lazy hand towards her. Remember Haim, both Kumo and Iwa have surprised us in the past. They could pull a fast one on us. He doubted they would attempt a full assault on Konoha, at least not right now with potentially Yuzu, Suna, and Kiri all allying to Konoha's side. Odder occurrences have happened in the past however, and he had to remind even himself that smaller villages had and still could be used as distractions. Uzushio fell to such measures and Konoha had been unable to help. Turning to argue the point, Tsunade is interrupted as Shizune opens the door and walks into the office. Well, I had assumed Kakashi had knocked you out for a few days yet. She hadn't said anything to Shizune calling off the day prior, nor her late start this morning. Good for the young woman, finally doing something for herself. Blushing and shaking her head as she carried a stack of papers and scrolls to Tsunade's desk, Shizune placed everything down and smiled. He is a dutiful boyfriend. Shaking herself, she motions down to the several-inch-tall stack of papers, duty and action reports. There had been a noticeable uptick in border incursions by Iwa shinobi recently. I wanted to bring it to your attention. Tsunade does her best to ignore the knowing look Jiraiya was sending her. Her long history with the man let her know instantly that he was probably mouthing "I told you so" over and over. The ass. Thank you, Shizune. I'll have revised patrol routes and missions for you to take down to processing before the day is over. Seeing her apprentice nod, Tsunade lets a grin stretch her face. So, am I going to lose you as well to Uzushio? Should I pack a bag? If Shizune did leave, Tsunade might just follow along after all. The real question was, who would she hand off the hat to? Shikaku? Too lazy that one. She'd really have to think on it. Jiraiya was at attention while Shizune babbled for a moment, and then no, of course not Lady Tsunade. We just. Tsunade waved her off. You should live your life. You don't have to take care of me anymore. Go start a family or something with that hot man of yours. You deserve it. Watching Shizune gather herself for a moment before she bowed deeply to her, she smiled as her longest apprentice left her office quietly. Well, there goes the best apprentice and secretary I ever had. Oh, what about that Haruno girl? Sakura? She was never a secretary. Though she was a stellar pupil. She was a damned good physician. Give her a few more years, and she very likely would be coming for Tsunade's title. Guess I really am going to have to up patrols. Better to be safe than sorry. Which meant a long afternoon for her. Yay. Jiraiya nods, good to hear. I guess I'll get started as well, and go get you what information that I can. Standing and stretching, Jiraiya had the window open and was already turning to leave. Tsunade coughed once, turning back to her paperwork though she knew Jiraiya's eyes were on her. Don't do anything stupid, alright? Stay safe and make sure to come home. Why was it suddenly so hot? Was she blushing? She better not be. Blinking quietly for a moment, Jiraiya opened his mouth to tease the Hokage, but decided against it. This was something new. Different. I'll return, don't you worry, Tsunadeheim. And then he was gone, flying over rooftops and making for the main gate. Top of the list of things on his mind, he worried about the upcoming conflict. Depending on the actions of Iwa and Kumo, this would devolve into another Great World War, and he honestly didn't see how any of the villages could survive another one. If they attacked Yuzu outright, Naruto would retaliate, dragging the remaining villages into it. Never mind all of the minor villages between them all. Was this the time? Was the prophecy coming to a head soon? He wasn't sure, but perhaps this was time to look deeper into things, beyond just the villages scouting each other. Behind him and left alone, Tsunade sighed, eyes on a border report, but mind somewhere else. Rather on someone else. What are you doing, Tsunade? Yet another question she could never seem to fully answer even after all this time. Scene change, Naruto would never deny that she was not one to sit still in one place for very long. Add on that Fu was the same way, with both girls happily flying high above the Uzushio oceans or exploring among the few forested areas that they had back home whenever they had the chance. Sitting inside of a slow-moving carriage as they traveled from the land of demons to the land of vegetables was becoming a real test in patience for the pair of women. They would bear it, of course, though with some grumbles. Naruto owed them both a major favor for this. Cheyenne and Koyuki were right at home in the plush coach, going over notes as they considered their plans once they arrived in the neighboring nation. Outside they could just make out the out-of-tune singing of Suzuki while Teruho drove the horse-drawn coach on. Koyuki was focused as she pointed down among their notes. Should we perhaps take the economic angle? Bring up the increased trade within the Uzushio Alliance's borders? Cheyenne shrugs, it's not a bad angle, of course, we might have other problems to attend to first, before we can cement negotiations. She gently toyed with her braided hair, Hinata convincing her to join her in the hairstyle. It was much more manageable this way. That perks up Fu and Naruko's interests, the mint-haired girl sitting up straight from where she had started to doze against the taller Naruko. Is there something wrong within the land of vegetables? Conflict meant she'd have something to do that didn't equate to just watching ink dry. Maybe she could practice with her Biju techniques, finally. Cheyenne nods. Well, as their name implies, the land of vegetables is a farming nation with a large economy and heavy exports. Troubling us at the moment is that my people received word that the vegetable daimyo was assassinated. There is a manhunt going on right now for his daughter. I believe her name is Haruna. Cheyenne vaguely remembers meeting the other woman once or twice when she was younger, but no more than in passing. A gathering of the local lords and ladies to mingle and network. Not much for a child priestess at that sort of event. Naruko leans back into her seat with a frown on her face. How bad must things have been for anyone to want to assassinate a daimyo? Koyuki is shaking her head as she considers her notes. Remember, there are plenty of people who would want to remove a daimyo from power and for multiple reasons. Some might want the daimyo's power for themselves. A nation doesn't have to be in decline for someone to consider doing such. Spring and Yuzushio Ninja had thwarted a few minor attempts on her life, by now even. Such was a worry for a daimyo after all. Cheyenne picks up on that. There's also the chance someone wanted to destabilize the country for their own ends. Like for instance, watching the country implode and then picking up whatever is left. Land itself is very valuable. Some other nation could be behind this, but Cheyenne doubted such. This reeked of something poorly planned out. Maybe individual actors then? Or a botched job funded by an adversary maybe? Shrugging and eyeing the countryside as they rode on, Naruto wondered if they would get lucky and some bandits would make a play for them. Help her pass the time. All this thinking is your area of expertise, not mine. I'm just here to kick ass and spread terror into the hearts of evil men. Grinning and mentally imagining blowing up bandit camps, she wondered if Naruto would get mad at her for causing some light chaos around here. Women can be evil too, you know. Fu chimes in while Cheyenne and Koyuki both roll their eyes as Naruto sighs but nods. You know what I meant. I don't know, have to make sure with you. I'm not Naruto. Oh, I know you aren't Nachan. The accompanying leer from the mint-haired girl set Naruto chuckling and looking back out of the window. Fu could be such a brat when she wanted. Koyuki sighed and pointed at the pair. Keep your flirting to yourselves, we have a long journey ahead of us after all, and I'd like to finish it without entering major battles. So no jinxing us. Koyuki was pointing severely at Naruto, who began to whistle innocently. Just like Naruto, once the woman got going, she wouldn't be able to be stopped. Just saying we could use some excitement is all. But Naruto relented and relaxed, watching the scenery as Fu settled into her side to nap as she had been about to do previously. Idly wrapping an arm around the dusky-skinned girl, Naruto's grin softened into a softer smile as her fingers trailed along Fu's arm. Touch. Real textile sensations. Such a novelty. Honestly though, think we'll have any trouble with bandits? Cheyenne shook her head, not within my nation at least. Once we enter vegetable, it's anyone's guess. We don't know what the situation is over there just yet. That was the real worry for her at the moment. They were going into this blind, especially if there wasn't a ruling body to get into contact with just yet. They might have to continue on and wait for this situation to resolve itself first. Their journey continued with little fanfare and lots of naps from the Fu and Naruto pair. Morning turned to afternoon and a little past that as the sun began to dip but still remained high in the sky. Eventually the scenery changed, much more lush growth and large farms and plantations began to fill their view, and soon enough a border town in which they could stop and rest. Finally within Vegetable's borders, the group decided some downtime out of the coach would be well received. As they stopped, Teruho was quick to see about the horses while Suzuki made to find food for the afternoon. This left Naruto and the others to explore the rustic town for a bit, promising to return to continue their journey within the hour. Hands in the pockets of her short black jacket while Fu wrapped an arm around her own, Naruto grunts at the noise and smells of what she was assuming was a trading town. Close to the border that it was, it made the most sense. It smells. She was grateful today for combat boots and black cargo pants. While not exactly cold, it was chilly enough to bother her. Cheyenne nods, it's lively. She had to remember that Naruto only recently acquired a real body. The young woman was still getting used to everything that entailed. Smells and temperature were apparently two areas she was having problems with. I wonder what sort of shops we can find here. Personally, she was excited. She had never had the chance to explore outside of her shrine. It made her a little giddy. Koyuki nods, taking in the hard-packed dirt roads, the wide and accommodating equal measure of foot traffic and work carts. It's a far cry from Yuzushio or Spring. She didn't mean to gloat, but it was hard not to when she was so used to more industrialized areas. That could be a potential selling point as well. Industrializing the area and bringing them up to par with the rest of the alliance. Fu giggles as they walk, I like it, it's so alive. Much as Cheyenne was thinking, Fu didn't have many opportunities to explore other towns or nations. This was all new for her and just as culture-shocking as it was to mingle about within Yuzushio. Naruto nods, yeah, guess so. Leading the way with Fu as Cheyenne and Koyuki follow along behind them, Naruto turns a violet eye back towards the pair. Should we grab a bite to eat, or rely on your servants for that? She honestly didn't care either way, but she was willing to help out more if Teruho was going to cook for them. Cheyenne shakes her head, perhaps a break for food would be good. We can see what the locals have to offer. Teruho and Suzuki deserved a break from time to time. Walking along the busy road as they were and ignoring many of the calls from farmer stands and vendors espousing their wares, it is Fu who is distracted first. By of all things, something shiny. You there. You look like you'd love something festive and unique. Why, my dear wife makes these necklaces that even young ladies from the capital stop and admire. A peddler was waving them over, and Fu is the first to stop and drag a reluctant Naruko along. Koyuki and Cheyenne giggle, but follow along quietly. Oh come on. We just said we don't have anything to do, right? Tugging and giggling as Naruko came to stand next to the peddlers on the side of the road, Fu was all smiles as she leaned down to look at the assortment of random jewelry and baubles laid out on a rather worn cloth. Some of the jewelry was really pretty. Naruko sighed, we actually were talking about food, not pretty rocks. What use did she have for random jewelry anyway? It'd most likely be destroyed in the first battle they entered anyway. Explosions and fire were not forgiving to fragile things. Fu rolled her eyes as Cheyenne and Koyuki stood off to her left to idle peruse the selection for themselves. Oh come now, sometimes you just have to have something cute and shiny for absolutely no reason. The leader of the little group, an older man with wide eyes and thick brown hair, was all smiles. Listen to the mint girl, she has good sense. Hand flashing out from within worn brown robes, Naruko notes hard and calloused hands. This man was a worker, maybe a farmer down on his luck? As the vendor tried to entice Fu and by extension Naruko into buying well-made but unnecessarily expensive trinkets, it is Cheyenne who locks eyes with a quiet and severe-looking man at the back. Leaning against a cart with what looked like more of their supplies or wares to be sold, they stared at each other for a moment before something much like recognition enters his eyes. Blinking and wondering if somehow she had been recognized as the Land of Demons priestess, she's a little confused as instead the young man turns away, busying himself with unloading the cart. Huh. Next to her, Koyuki nudges her, something wrong? Shaking her head and turning back as Fu purchases a knotted necklace of what looks like pearls and jade beads, Cheyenne sighed, no, just. I thought I recognized that boy was all. Naruko's ears perked up. Was that danger she was smelling? Taking 2 steps to cross behind Koyuki and Cheyenne, her voice is nearly a whisper, someone dangerous? Her eyes were already scanning the crowds around them while her senses stretched out cautiously. Having her own chakra to mold and use was still such a novelty to get used to. Cheyenne shakes her head again, I don't think so. More like a passing face. Someone I've maybe met once, but then never saw again. Humming, Naruko shrugs as Fu bounces back to her feet, if you say so. Happy with the money changing hands, the vendor turns back to his group, Shun. Need another jade necklace. Watching the boy come back around the cart, Cheyenne's feeling of familiarity returns. How would she have met some random peddler in the land of vegetables? She hadn't been around the normal populace ever before. But still, this Shun looked familiar. Naruko shrugs and motions for them to continue. Come on, I'm starving, let's find some food and get back to the carriage, we still have a long way to go. Naruko didn't miss that this Shun guy was doing everything he could to avoid Cheyenne's gaze. Suspicious. Fu nodded and bounced back to her side, I'm thinking something sweet. Let's go find some melon. Or peaches. Think anyone here has baked any pies? She easily let Naruko lead her away, the group making their way back onto the path they were once on. Getting lost back into the crowd before eventually turning down another road and following their noses, Naruko has a moment to quietly make a clone and quickly transform it into a smaller bug form. Follow him. Watching the bug flit off, Naruko turned back to see the others all watching her with mixed looks. Just in case. Koyuki shook her head, you're too paranoid. Just like Naruto. At the least, she wasn't blowing anything up randomly, so there were no complaints. Yet. Naruko shrugged, pulling Fu tighter into her side, paranoia keeps us alive. Naruko was a firm believer in gut feelings. If Cheyenne felt like she recognized that guy, then best to keep an eye on him. Never hurt to be safe, just in case. Scene change, you know. I can't really put my finger on it, but there's always just something about traveling through a land of fire forest that's just exhilarating. Ino was all grins as she, Hinata, and Anoka traveled by tree towards their destination. They were currently on the hunt for a bounty from Kumo, a runaway who apparently murdered his team before running. The smartass was even making their job easy, leaving a trail of sightings and bodies in his wake. She certainly wasn't going to complain. Hinata can't help but nod, braided hair trailing behind her while her black jacket flared out behind her. The megafauna might be part of that. Nowhere else was there a chance you might run into giant tigers or bears. Land of Fire it might be, but Land of Giant Animals would be a close second for a name. Just behind Ino and Hinata, Anoka is deep in thought as she wonders over the information they have been able to gather. It's odd though. Why would a missing nin from Kumo run to of all places Iwa? Though the others hadn't turned back to her, she could tell she had their attention. Of course officially the two villages aren't under an alliance, but it's pretty close. If Iwa catches wind of this guy, they're just going to capture him and send him back to Kumo. Lady Tsunade had let slip that something was going on behind the scenes with the two villages. Was this connected? Or was the rumored alliance between them more fragile than Yuzushio suspected? Shrugging and bouncing from one tree branch to another, Ino didn't give the worry much thought. Most missing nin aren't the smartest of the bunch. I mean, who really thinks they're getting away from their village after killing their squadmates? Never mind all the rest of the trouble he was causing. He was going to make himself a problem for multiple villages at this rate. The timing is a bit concerning. Hinata chimed in, her own mind beginning to tackle the problem. Any Kumo ninja should know how things stand between themselves and Iwa. Why risk it with so many smaller nations between them? This is a newer bounty. He's listed as an A rank and the information available is substantial. Which in itself is slightly odd. Now that she was really applying her mind to it, she could see the caution Anoka was having. Ino angled herself to end up next to Hinata, face thoughtful, think this is a trap? Hinata nods slowly, possible, but the question is for who and why. It wouldn't make much sense if it was meant for them. This was a bounty from one of the public books, anyone could have taken this one, not just them. Anoka nods, think of the timeline. Pausing in her speech as they all have to divert around a larger-than-normal tree, skirting its large trunk, before they met up again on the other side so she could continue, the summit was announced, Yuzushio goes public, and this bounty drops. Considering our luck, I don't believe in coincidences. Seeing both younger women turn to her, she finally shrugs, that kind of planning wouldn't be just to capture some random ninja, there's a goal behind it. Ino snaps her finger, think about the location. Somewhere between grass and waterfall. Any chance this trap might be targeting their ninja? Taki were known for their isolationist ways and also their vaulted hero water. Some might be willing to go to such lengths for a chance to have that. Hinata nods at the idea, completely possible, which would mean we could be walking into a trap not meant for us. Something that Naruto would never let them live down, ever. Never mind that he would never let them out of his sight for the rest of his life if something happened. Thinking on it, of the major villages Suna wouldn't have taken this bounty, having enough issues keeping up with internal missions of their own now that trade and supplies have increased. Konoha as well wouldn't have, wanting to keep the peace as much as possible. Iwa obviously doesn't care if this ninja is running rampant near their borders, and Kumo wouldn't send a full team this far away from their home, especially though the Land of Fire. Especially so soon after the summit. Catching on to what Hinata was thinking, Ino completes her thought, that leaves us. Yuzushio, that is. Unless some random ninja decides to try and get lucky. Or a smaller village looking to make a name for themselves. Not likely, but not impossible either. Anoka finally shakes herself free of depressing thoughts and levels firm looks on Ino and Hinata. If this is likely a trap, why continue on with it? It would be easy enough to turn around and return home. Take a different bounty even if they really wanted to. It wasn't like this one was important. Hinata pointed to the headband on her forehead. Most likely if it is a trap for Yuzushio, they might have assumed Naruto would come after it with such a high rank. They wouldn't be expecting a full team that knows they're springing a trap. Ino has a grin back on her face, best way to avoid a trap is to know that it's there. It's reckless. Anoka sighs as Ino and Hinata grin at her, waiting for what they know she's going to say. She both loves and hates that she won't disappoint them. Obviously we're going to continue on, if for nothing else so we can make a fool out of whoever thinks they're going to get one over on us. Anoka taps her pouch on her lower back where a few special scrolls sat in waiting, unless of course we're being paranoid and there is no trap. Ino shook her head, pounding a fist into a flat palm as her blood sang at the chance for a fight. No, this has to be a trap, don't jinx it. After this is over, I'm holing up with Naruto for a week. Anoka had her priorities after all. She still wanted to catch up to the lucky three back home. Hinata has a small smile on her face as she considers her own desires, that doesn't sound like such a bad idea. As if you don't sneak around whenever you can on a regular basis. Ino smirked as Hinata flicked a leaf her way. You're one to talk. Is there a surface Naruto hasn't bent you over back home? The kitchen table maybe? Ino looked up and really thought about it. No, wait, there was that time with Tayuya after everyone else went to bed. You degenerate. Onoka rolled her eyes. Can we not do this today? We can measure who gets more Naruto time later. Mentally she was sure that she and Karen had them both beat. Karen's basement lab truly gave them a world of options. And Naruto was rather good at trap making, so handy with rope. Ino just shakes her head as creepy giggles leave Onoka's mouth. Her own perversions aside, it would be nice to relax for a long while. Take up some work at home and stay put. She had been rather negligent about her personal garden, and now the Uzumaki estate needed her own personal touch. Plus she had been meaning to survey some of their citizens recently to get a feel for how they felt about things lately. The longer she thought about it, the more she knew she'd never be bored staying home. You are rather driven, think you might want to settle down a bit and run a division or two? Hinata could see her fellow wife taking on more leadership roles back home, much as Tayuya had. The blonde was the leader type and was very good with people. Most likely the Yamanaka blood in her at work. I wouldn't mind it. Something to keep me busy between helping with the kids and eventually having my own. Things are changing, and maybe one day we won't have to take missions like this anymore. Ino was one to plan out, think about the future. She wanted just as much as the others for their lives to remain peaceful. Happy. You're certainly thinking far ahead. Hinata's voice isn't mocking, but sincere as they hop along. Maybe I should consider the same. While the Hyuga princess could fight, that didn't mean she necessarily wanted to. She would be just as happy at home with Naruto, all day, every day. Surrounded by kids, in her love's arms. Safe. Warm. It sounded like bliss. Onoka coughs into a hand to regain their focus. I think we all have been thinking about our futures and children more recently. Probably in no small part because of the others. We really should make some personal concrete plans now that the city is stable and secure. Plus they could establish an order to things. Best not to have kids all at once after all. As the forest thins out a bit and giving them the hint that they were approaching the border of the land of fire, Ino takes the lead as Hinata settles just to her right while Onoka comes just to her left. After this mission then, we will sit Naruto down and we'll all really get to planning things out. No sense in us all having kids at the same time after all. Could be fun though. Hinata giggled at Ino's disgruntled look sent her way. Fun and sensible are two different things. We're Uzumaki, do we really do anything sensible? Onoka and Ino looked at each other before looking back to the serene Hinata, Ino sighing and rubbing her temples. Do we count Naruto not having cracked the world in half as our most sensible thing? No, because he could probably do so at any time. Hinata's cheeky reply had Ino nearly tripping and falling to the forest floor below them. That's not a comforting thought. It's Naruto. We should always be a little worried about what he is getting up to. She still couldn't forget that little time bubble seal he had made. So terrifying he could be, the man they loved. Scene change, it was another clear and beautiful day in Uzushio, and Naruto was taking his time to enjoy it while he could. Having dropped off a tired Sasuke with Sakura to watch over him back home, Naruto now walked along Uzushio streets as he meandered his way back towards the tower. This at least would give him time to immerse himself with the people, feel the general vibe and wonder if maybe there were concerns he might be overlooking. Emotional sensing was probably much more useful than any destructive skill he had in the long run. Don't forget to actually talk to people. I would never. Naruto grunted as he considered what he would get up to next. Itachi was down, Kumo was still a worry, but he most likely had some time to deal with them. That left Iwa. Should he pay Inoki a visit like he did, eh? Knowing that old man, Naruto wouldn't be leaving without some serious collateral damage. Well, Iwa would be taking a lot of damage and that certainly would be damaging to his own quest for peace. Doesn't sound like such a bad deal, does it? Kurama had little love for the people of stone. Neither did Naruto in the end, but useless violence was still useless. Nah, it doesn't, but for now we can let them be. We have other concerns to get to. Kurama's chuckles filled his mind, thinking too hard is going to give you ulcers. All of my wives are going to give me ulcers. Lost in thought as he had been, he pauses as he finds himself before the Uzumaki monument. Staring down into the golden inscription there, he smiles and offers a prayer to the fallen. Life had been good since leaving Konoha, and by this point he honestly could not ask for more. The city was thriving, his family was whole, and the future, while troublesome, looked bright. You could probably do with some extra sleep. That would take an act of the kami by this point. Sleep is a luxury I seem to be in short supply of lately. Shaking himself and offering a few quiet greetings to other citizens who themselves were offering silent prayers to the monument, he continued his way into the tower proper. The hustle and bustle of the reception level never failed to put a smile on his face, more proof that they were doing something correct here. Tayuya is probably more than a little pissed off, and I need to check on Tsunami and make sure she's okay. You do that. Call me when something fun happens. Feeling the great Biju go back to napping, Naruto idly completed a haration and found himself deposited in his office. Blinking and taking in the fuming redhead behind his desk while Karen giggled and Kabuto stood off to the side silently, he's blindsided by the massive well-formed woman that spears him around the middle. Woo! Why were his arms full of mature woman? Oh my dear hero. Tsunami was laying his arm thick, hugging Naruto tightly around the middle while she could hear Tayuya's teeth grinding behind her. Teasing was always worth the effort. Tayuya could feel a vein pulsing in her forehead. Welcome back, I'm guessing you and the others took care of Itachi? Somehow Naruto just knew he was going to get in trouble for this. Great. Yeah, Sasuke took care of his brother. Letting Tsunami up, his view was suddenly pulled down to see her smiling face. You aren't hurt, are you? Not at all. Say, can I borrow you for a day or two? Here Tsunami was all grins as she leaned in and needled a finger into his chest. I was so frightened when Itachi tried to do whatever it was to me. I just need some help relaxing and calming down. Big doe eyes locked onto his. You don't mind helping me, do you? Warning klaxons blaring in his mind, he did his best to ignore the ranting Tayuya yelling about old hussies who need to find their own men. Thankfully, Karen was holding her co-wife down via chakra chains. IOL. Here Naruto took a steadying breath before nodding resolutely. Anything for you, Tsunami. Bringing his arms around to hug the older woman tightly, he sighed as he could feel her giggle into his chest. You're going to get me killed. He knew without a doubt she was just teasing, but it was still going to set him in the doghouse one way or another. Pulling away with a smile, Tsunami shakes her head as a clone pops into existence next to her. Oh no, we wouldn't want that. Leaning into the clone easily, the older woman and overseer of Wave smirked. Don't worry. I'm not stealing you away, I really do just want you to visit. Inari misses you. Naruto nods. I promise, I'll come swing by. You better. And then she was gone, whisked away by a smirking clone. Naruto really hoped that clone didn't get him in any trouble. Turning to a calmer Tayuya and a smirking Karen, Naruto starts for his chair as Tayuya begins to stand. What did I miss while I was gone? Easily dropping into the warm chair, he just as quickly pulls a surprised Tayuya back into his lap. Anything major? She molded easily into his chest, arms folding over his own as he held her around her middle. Tayuya shakes her head and warmth fills her. Was he always this warm? Nothing much. A few teams came in to drop off reports and Karen came up cause she was worried. Karen rolled her eyes as Naruto's gaze swept to her. Wow, is everyone going to out me today? Squeezing Tayuya lightly, Naruto finally let her up. Good to hear, go get some rest and take it easy. Standing and stretching her back, Tayuya turned hostile eyes towards him. That'd be a lot easier if you weren't taking every chance you could get to run off and play hero. But Tachan, it's part of why you love me. Seeing the fiery red head blush and refuse to answer him, Naruto scored himself another mental point. Don't worry, how about tonight we dash? Pausing mid-sentence, something vaguely familiar brushed against his senses. Huh. Instantly on edge, Tayuya and Karen both focused on the young Kage. Karen is already making to stand. Trouble? They certainly hadn't felt anything, and the alarms weren't going off nor were any messages from the border team coming in. No, just, Homing in on the feeling, Naruto let a grin build on his face as he got a feel for the chakra that he could recognize that was not native to Uzushio. Not a threat I think, but something interesting. Sending out his chakra and senses in full, Kurama hummed awake. Smells like a fight brewing. I'm up. Might disappoint you, buddy. Naruto could tell whoever this was, wasn't far from here. He knew who this was. Turning back to the girls while standing, he makes a clone to man the desk. Go and relax, this is something minor. Tayuya huffed and crossed her arms, you promise? Absolutely. Looks like Inoki's granddaughter decided to come and visit. Seeing both of the girls' wide-eyed blinks, Naruto waves them off, it'll be fine. I just want to make sure she isn't here to cause any trouble. If she was, it might just be perfect for him. Easy leverage to make sure Inoki didn't get any funny ideas. Don't underestimate the craftiness of old men. You would know, wouldn't you? Damn straight. Naruto paused as Karen came up to lightly hold his hand, turning to look down on her. I promise, it's no threat. Karen nods along, I believe you. Just. When you're done, come find me. I want to have a talk, okay? Watching Naruto consider her for a moment with some nervousness in her heart, she smiles as he nods with a large grin. Will do, Karen. I'll be back in a flash. And then he was gone, leaving Karen with Tayuya and Kabuto. Tayuya easily brushed past Kabuto. Should I change my bet and place it on you instead? Karen scoffed and turned to follow the muscled woman out of the office to leave the Naruto clones to their work. Nope. I think it'll be Hinata. Damn woman did it everywhere. Omake Kakashi used to think of himself as a bit of a loner, fairly antisocial and a penchant for getting lost nearly on command. That said, and recent life changes aside, things had really turned around for him ever since he had taken his team. He had reconnected with some friends, made a couple new ones, and even found love. But today, as apparently news about he and Shizune seriously considering moving away made the rounds among the ninja population, he regretfully was reminded of one long-term friend that he had neglected as of late. Of course, he could have used a different reminder. As opposed to a full-grown man crying into his flak jacket in the middle of the street. Kakashi could say that he respected Guy tremendously, maybe even loved him in a brotherly way. But getting tears and snot all over his clothes was not how he expected to spend his afternoon. Kakashi. How could you leave? After all this time, so unyouthful of you. Guy had no eyes for the crowd that was beginning to form around them, instead fully distraught that one of his longest friends was apparently leaving the village, and without him at that. The heartbreak. Guy, look, it's not you. Honest. I have another path I have to take is all. Trying and failing to break Guy's grip on his jacket, Kakashi sighed and leveled a bored look to the groveling man at his feet. You'll still see me, and we aren't leaving just yet. But, you're still leaving, aren't you? You aren't denying it. You're leaving me behind. Bawling as if his favorite pet just died, Guy wondered if he could transfer to Uzushio, much like Kakashi had. No one understood him like Kakashi did. They shared a bond of youth like no others in this village. Guy, really, honest, it's not that serious. It's not you, it's... Why did this feel like a breakup? Kakashi sighed as he could already hear some mutterings from the crowd around them. That wasn't good. Look, I'll come back and visit often. We're still tight on challenges, aren't we? Guy was up in an instant, face clean and teeth gleaming in the sun. That's perfect. Why, since this may very well be our last challenge, let's make it a memorable one. Guy put a hand to his chin, eyes closed as he thought about it long and hard. What could we do? Interrupting them and the crowd around them, the street is parted by a screaming and running group of Konohamaru, Udon, Moegi, and a laughing and cheering Hanabi in Konohamaru's arms. Caught flat-footed and blinking owlishly, Kakashi and Guy watched the kids race away before they are pushed back by an angry Hayashi who was dragging a tired-looking Asuma along. Come back here, you ingrate, and unhand my daughter. Kiss my ass, old man. Run, Konohamaru. Don't stop. Asuma was only struggling because Hayashi decided to remind him that he was as well a proficient practitioner of Juken. He sure hoped he regained use of his legs soon. Watching the group race away and turn a corner, Kakashi and Guy turned back to each other slowly. Kakashi was already beginning to grin. Bet I can save Konohamaru and Hanabi before you subdue Hayashi. You're on. Chapter 73. Curiosity piqued and mind clear, Naruto was walking down one of the main streets of a city branch on towards where he could feel Kuratsuchi's chakra. From the direction he had a feeling that she might be around the foodie district, which suited him alright. He was pretty hungry. Even still, his concern wasn't so much how she had gotten here, but why she was here. Did she come to start some trouble? Come to apologize? Or maybe something else. Kurama grumbled and started to doze back off. This is boring. If there isn't some screaming or blood, I'm going back to sleep. With the brat's luck, she probably wanted to jump his bones. Naruto nodded as he weaved through the crowd. You do that, big buddy. I'll let you know if there's anything interesting going on. See that you do. Walking along and enjoying the warm sun and peaceful atmosphere as he almost missed it when he gained a pair of followers who melted out of the crowd and joined him. Looking back, Naruto gave Neji and En disgruntled looks. Should I even ask why you're both here already? They were getting faster. En was grinning as his dark square glasses glinted in the sun. Lady Tayuya keyed us on the radio. Her orders were, end quote, don't let him go overboard, end quote. En was always happy to keep the Uzumaki women happy. It was an easy ticket to making sure he got fun missions later. Neji nodded along. She mentioned something about some woman from Stone? Naruto sighs but nods. Yeah. Kuratsuchi, granddaughter of Inoki. Currently the Tsuchikage and one crotchety bastard. Naruto let things fall into silence for a few moments as the group made their way and the citizens parted around them with some happy greetings back and forth. If Naruto was out with guard, most assumed he must be on official business and made a point not to hinder him. Neji shrugged and folded his arms into his tunic sleeves. Should we be on alert for anything? Shaking his head, Naruto didn't consider Kuratsuchi a threat at all. Nah. This is nothing, just want to make sure she's not here to cause trouble. Naruto turned a bright eye towards the other teen. Say, I've been meaning to ask, what's with you and that subordinate of yours? Kana, right? Finally getting around to appreciating the female half of society? Or are you holding out for your former teammate? What was her name again? Naruto hadn't paid as much attention to the rest of the Konoha rookies as he probably should have since he left. He'd have to fix that. Maybe have a get-together to celebrate once he handled business. Oh, maybe make Fu's wish come true and have a get-together with all of the Jinchuriki that he could find. Gaara would have fun with that. Neji was already letting his shoulders slump. Do you mean Tenten? No, she had more interest in Lee anyway. She was a good friend, nothing more. Here he paused as he considered the more outgoing and usually upbeat Hataru clan member on his team. She certainly did have her good points. Faults as well. So many faults. Kana is a good person and means well. I'm not really sure if she's really interested in me or if it's just her teasing me. En ribbed the younger man with a grin. That wasn't a denial of your own feelings though. Come on, tell us, you got the hots for her or not? She is my clanmate and a valued member of my team. Right now, my focus is on my clan and Uzushio. I have a duty to uphold. Naruto rolled his eyes. That's probably the closest we're going to get to Neji admitting he has feelings for someone. Here he lazily waved a hand over his shoulder. Just remember, Neji, a man's duty is to build a legacy. That includes something to leave behind. Ah, they were close. Was she at Iam's? That sure seemed to be the case as they continued down the sidewalk past other wide-windowed restaurants. The smells around them certainly had his stomach rumbling now. I will consider that. Neji quietly decided that he would as well, since the advice was coming from Naruto. He wouldn't be making any decisions anytime soon, what with tensions with the other villages so high at the moment. But it was good to consider the future. And was stretching his arms out over his head, before finally calming down and rotating his shoulder. Just make sure to take it easy while you can and don't end up with a wife like mine. She'll run you ragged every chance she gets. Granted, he really couldn't complain. Chino deserved some younger siblings, and apparently he had put in some good enough work. Heh. Keiko had been on cloud 9 ever since the doctor had given them the good news. Naruto seconded that thought. You said it, En. I'd kill for some real sleep sometimes. These women will be the death of me one day. En sighed. I both envy you, and really don't. Story of my life. Pausing as the chakra signature is close in front of them, Naruto sighs as he stares up into the bright red and white sign above them. Just his luck. Ichiraka Ramen Iam's cute spot. Shaking his head, Naruto opened the glass front door and grinned wide. Yo, Iam. Hope you're all stocked up, 'cause I'm super hungry. Smiling just as wide as other patrons cheered for their leader, Iam was already waving a ladle towards him. I'm always prepared for you, Naruto. Have a seat, you want the special? You know it. Naruto quickly took in the space. Finding Yujito at the bar was a nice surprise, but his target was the one he was interested in at the moment. Sliding between a few tables, Naruto and his shadow settle in at a table next to Kuratsuchi and a man he didn't recognize. Had an interesting blue mask though. Man, I was ignoring it, but now that I'm here, I really am pretty hungry. Neji nods, dropping into a seat across from Naruto while En comes to sit next to him, leaving the seat next to Naruto empty. When is the last time you ate, Lord Naruto? Naruto had to think about that. He skipped breakfast, lunch was interrupted, thanks to Itachi. Did he have dinner last night? No, he decided he wanted to have bath activities instead. Shaking his head and sighing, Neji sure hoped Naruto learned to take better care of himself one day. Maybe this is the best course of action for the afternoon then. You need to eat. Yeah, what are you, my babysitter? Do you really want me to answer that? Do so at your own peril. Naruto's eyes glinted with obvious mirth, at least until a very feminine hand trailed along his shoulders and a shiver crawled up his spine. I didn't do it. I'm awake. Down, boy. Yujito was all grins as she settled into the seat next to Naruto, her cup of tea the only addition she placed down in her new place. You most certainly did, my lord. Yujito leaned forward, one elbow on the table and a cheek resting in the supported hand. Still all smiles. I have a favor to ask, if you don't mind. Naruto flatly ignored the grin and was shooting his way and the more disapproving look Neji had on his face. They had no clue, none at all. Sure thing, Yujito, what do you need? He had promised to make sure she was settling into the city as well as she could. Best to give his best efforts towards that. Well, Ino, Tayuya and everyone else have been trying to help me find my own way, and I thought finally that I had something I wanted to do. So. Here she again trailed a finger down from his shoulder to his hand. Think you could get me a job? Blinking as that was not the direction he thought this conversation was going to go, Naruto nodded easily. Sure. What are you looking to do? I want to be your secretary. Huh? Secretary, yes. Yujito held his gaze firmly. Ayam was right, this was fun. I'm sure I can work something out. Naruto mentally sighed. He was placing this as Ino's fault. Yeah, I can make something happen. Wonderful. Leaning back and finishing her tea, Yujito stood to leave. I'll be waiting for the good news then. Waving goodbye to Ayam, who was focused on a growing pile of bowls, Yujito then leaned down into Naruto's ear as she passed him to give one last whisper. And please, Lord Uzumaki, come visit me again. My kitty certainly won't mind another showing from you. Feeling the man freeze in place, she giggled as she stood straight and left the eatery, hips swinging for the fun of it. Taking a deep breath and smiling up into the sun, she decided today was most certainly a beach day. Maybe she'd stop and pick up a book from home first, or maybe some art supplies. Sighing and dropping down to the table, Naruto grunts as En begins to laugh long and loud. You just can't help yourself, can you, Uzumaki-sama? It's not my fault. You're the Uzukage, it's all your fault. Neji's deadpan response cut right into Naruto's heart. He didn't mean for any of this to happen. Honest. And leaned back as Ayam floated their way, placing down bowls in front of them all with a bright smile and a wave of thanks. The ramen certainly looked extra good today. Snapping his chopsticks, he gave his thanks and began to dig in. Ayam herself tapped the young leader on the forehead. The Uzumaki clan is bound to grow pretty quick at this rate, huh? Come on, big sis. No teasing. I have so little of my sanity left. Of course, Naruto wouldn't argue that it was a hell of a lot of fun. Nor would he trade it away for anything in the world. Well, maybe some sleep. Shaking himself and grabbing his own eating utensils, he turns his head to see Kuratsuchi doing her best to edge away from him and prepare to sneak out. So, Kuratsuchi. Seeing the woman flinch and keeping a smile on his face, he continued on as she turned back towards him with a weak smile of her own. What brings you to Uzushio? Nothing crazy, I hope. He'd be pleasant so long as she could be. Ayam's was sacred ground after all, and no one disrespected the ramen. Not in his presence. Oh, you know, just sightseeing. Nothing serious or anything. Laughing and trying her best to appear non-threatening, she cursed her luck. Here was her target. The maelstrom himself, the Uzukage. What a fake. But he was also surrounded by enough ninja that even she would have some trouble. No, she had to get him alone. I could use a tour guide, think you'd mind showing me around? Grunting and eyes hardening a tad, Naruto shook his head. Sightseeing, huh? Well, the tower's entrance level has tour guides and information I'm sure you'd love to dive into. If that's your thing. Naruto took a slurp of hot noodles, savoring the complex mix of flavors and spices before swallowing and pointing his chopsticks at her. But, need I remind you what happened in hot water? You try anything here and that will seem like a morning breeze compared to what I'll do to you here, got it? I really was going all out on this special ramen. Was that tuna? What was that spice she added in? It was divine. Sighing and deciding to step in as Kuratsuchi began to sweat, Obito shook his hands in a placating manner. Toby thinks Kuro isn't a bad girl. She'll behave, Toby thinks. Toby has been trying to fix her attitude, but you know how it is. Takes time. Be the doofus, inconsequential, a non-threat. That was the best move for now. Naruto was all smiles again, nodding sagely. Yeah, I can agree with that. Changing someone as hard-headed as Kuratsuchi must be a full-time job. You have my condolences. Thank you, I need it. Kuratsuchi was flushed as she nearly vibrated in place, while unable to speak up to defend herself fully. I'm not that bad. She'd make sure to give Naruto a earth spike enema when they fought. Shrugging and decided to write them off as no big deal, Naruto begins to dig into his meal, no sweat in the end. I don't hold grudges against those who recognize they did wrong and are working to change themselves. So here, I can give you a chance. Naruto held a hand out towards her, one that she tentatively took and shook carefully. See, no harm no foul. He wouldn't mention the subtle Haration tag he just placed on her. Better safe than sorry. Yeah, I appreciate it. Kuratsuchi felt like she had to literally force the words out of her mouth, but if it prevented a fight from breaking out, she'd take the offer for peace. Ayam was already swinging back, taking Naruto's suddenly empty bowl and replacing it with a new one. Still, she felt like teasing material was right in front of her and couldn't help herself. You seem awfully familiar with this one, Naruto-kun. Another girlfriend of yours? She doesn't look like your normal type. Girl was a little of the small side, but hey, maybe Naruto's interests were changing. Shaking his head quickly, Naruto held up his arms in AX formation. Nope. All wrong. Just someone I ran into during one of my missions. He'd have to tell Ayam the full story later, to clear up the confusion. Him and Kuratsuchi? Nearly made him hurl. Kuratsuchi nodded. There's no way I'd be interested in this guy. I need someone much more manly. Naruto raised an eyebrow at that. Me? Not manly? Somewhere in the city, he got the distinct feeling several women all sneezed at once. Mentally, however, he can feel Kurama beginning to get nervous about something. Hey partner, sense something? So, Doc, can I get you to promise not to get upset? Naruto nodded almost instantly, beginning to attack his newest bowl, while En and Niji watched on with something akin to disgust and horror. Sure buddy, what's up? Idly, he noted that Kuratsuchi and this Toby character relaxed once they knew he wasn't going to start a fight. Good omen that. I feel a familiar chakra signature. Mentally shrugging again, Naruto didn't see the worry there. And? How old are you again? I'm sure you've run into countless chakra signatures by now, and they've got to start feeling similar from time to time. Maybe it's Kuratsuchi, you remember I fought her right? He wouldn't put it past Kurama to forget fighting the Iwa princess. She really wasn't that memorable. Both in fighting ability or looks as far as he was concerned. Kurama shook his head. No. Not this one. This one is seared into my brain pretty deep. Naruto paused at that as Ayam was working on teasing Niji while En egged the young man on as well. Okay, now I'm nervous. Who is it? Mentally, he chuckled as Ayam needled the other teen about his not-quite girlfriend. Was Niji blushing? Okay, so again, don't get upset. You're really starting to worry me, buddy. Sighing and decided to get on with it, Kurama steels himself. This is a chakra I haven't felt in 16 years, Naruto. Oh, so someone you and my mom fought then? Wait, hold on. 16 years ago? His mom would have been pregnant with him by then. Very pregnant. Not so much fought. As Kurama didn't get to finish as Naruto's eyes tracked to Toby, senses latching onto the older man as if to dissect him from every possible angle. Who is he? See, this is why I tried to get you to promise not to get upset. Kurama. Who is this Toby guy? Naruto's focus was now solely on Toby, food forgotten. Sighing and praying that this didn't go south right away, Kurama nodded his head. Meet Obito Uchiha. The man that ripped me from your mother as she was giving birth to you, and then threatened to kill you as you were only a few-minute-old babe. Freezing fully in place, eyes cold and latched onto Toby, Naruto gained the curiosity of Niji and En, both of which were turning to look at the curious Toby as well. Naruto's chakra was deceptively still, mind whirling in an attempt to focus on one emotion. He was failing, but he was working through them steadily enough. Rage? Check. Curiosity? Dwindling. Rage? Double check. Neji leans forward to try and snap Naruto out of it. Lord Naruto, is something wrong? Maybe this pair was a danger after all. He suddenly had his hidden hand on his radio, ready to give an alarm signal to the ninja office at a moment's notice. Obito catches on that Naruto is watching him. The look in the teenager's eyes was one he didn't like, at all. I think it'd be best if Toby and Kuro got to moving. We have a lot of places to see, people to visit. That sort of thing. Kuratsuchi shrugs, what's the rush, things are good, we're good. Why leave? Oblivious to it, she turns to check out Naruto and the sudden silence that seemed to be falling on the restaurant. Oh, those eyes of his were like ice. What did Toby do to this guy? Thanking Kurama mentally, Naruto leans forward just a tad, say, what did you say your name was again? His eyes stayed locked onto Toby, there was no question about who he was addressing here. Toby is Toby. Just a drifter, no one important. Just a drifter, huh? Naruto takes a breath, counts to 10, and releases it. It doesn't help. His blood is still on fire. Odd choice for the killer of my parents. Must be nice. That admission silenced the rest of the conversations in the room, all eyes turning towards their direction. Carefully, slowly, Obito raises his hands in a warding motion. I think you have the wrong person, friend. Truly, we are not here for a fight. Oh, I understand wholeheartedly. I certainly wouldn't want to fight me either these days. But you know how it goes. Some things just can't be forgiven. Standing slowly, Naruto looms over the pair as Kuratsuchi looks from him to Obito and back in confusion. How had things changed so quickly? Naruto had only a slight frown on his face, but his eyes. They promised death, pretty hard to fool an ancient Biju when it comes to chakra. And yours is oh so familiar. Looking around and seeing that the room was now completely focused on them, Obito sighs and realizes that one way or another, Naruto had figured out who he really was. Shame. I don't think this is a fight you want, boy. Faster than thought, Naruto has a fistful of Obito's tunic, you know. I just don't think you have a choice in the matter. Chuckling and shifting his eye into the Sharingan and then the Mangekyo, he felt himself begin to phase out of sync with this dimension. You'll find I have plenty of choice, you little dash. Just as suddenly as he started to slip away, Naruto's hand began to glow a yellow color and latched onto him more firmly. What? Naruto has a mad grin as he hoists Obito to his feet. Oh, you have no idea how long I've been waiting for someone like you to show up. Time for you and me to party. And then they were gone, a flash the last thing denoting their presence. Idly, all of the ninja present could hear the radios chime in their ears. An alert had been issued. Seeing all eyes turn to her, Kuratsuchi held up her hands quickly. She knew better now. I surrender. Neji was frowning as he stood, lamenting his noodles that would be left and wasted, probably the smartest choice you could make. I is already walking over, transferring Neji and In's food into to-go containers. Will Naruto be alright? Idly, she noted several of the ninja patrons finishing their meals and leaving quickly. Must be an emergency then. Neji nodded as En slapped a suppression seal on Kuratsuchi and threw her limp body over his shoulder. This is Lord Naruto. If anyone will be okay, it is him. He better be at least. Neji was not dealing with Lady Tayuya's anger alone. Not again. Scene change, from the forests of the Land of Fire to the great plains of grass country. Hinata, Ino, and Anoka easily made their way into the border town affectionately called Last Stop. Nestled at the junction of the borders between Grass, Waterfall, and Iwa, it was a good place to rest, stop and resupply before entering the more rocky terrain of Iwa. All three young women were feeling a different sort of way as Hinata led them on and Ino took in the people around them. It wasn't a feeling of fear or unease that had her somewhat jumpy, but all the same there was an energy in the air. Something she didn't like, not one bit. Thinking on it, she considered that she had felt this way ever since they had crossed over into Grass. Maybe they were being watched. We should make this quick. I feel like I'm being watched. Ino's voice was quiet as they walked along the sparsely populated road, Anoka bringing up the rear while Hinata led them closer and closer to the town center. Anoka hums and scans the crowd. I don't see anything out of the ordinary, the people seem happy enough as well. Hinata sighs, it's mostly civilians here. The largest chakra signature here is our mark. Here she sighs and releases her Byakugan. He wouldn't be moving anytime soon by the looks of it. Man matches our target's description, is just ahead in a restaurant, place is pretty empty. Ino sighed, well that's not suspicious at all. Anoka leaned forward to tap her on the shoulder, remember when I said this was reckless? Yup, and I remember when you agreed to push ahead as well. Can't let you two have all the fun now, can I? Ino and Anoka share a laugh as they continue on, the dusty road and gloomy overcast sky adding to the general mood of the place. Hinata shrugged, we are being followed, if that's your worry. She had made sure to keep an eye on the surrounding area often. Ino pulled alongside Hinata and nudged her in the side, how's your seal? Hinata shrugged, same as yours. Naruto only made sure to check and triple-check them before we left. He had been insistent that they all learn the Hiraishin before they could leave and learn they did. Now each of them capable of it in an emergency. This far from home it'll probably suck us dry to get back all at once, but if anything looks sketchy, it's the better option. Ino agrees, we aren't that hot-head. We bail if it looks like it'll be a bigger fight than we planned. Ino shook herself as Hinata led them around a corner to an emptier street and internally sighed at how quiet this place was. Let's put him down quick and get out of here. I want to get as far away from my wa as we can. Naruto's worry and concern was beginning to bleed over into her. Anoka was already circulating chakra within her, chains at the ready inside her, I can have him wrapped up and subdued in seconds. Thrilling as this was, no point in needlessly bringing on more risk than they already had. Within a minute, Hinata leads them to an out-of-the-way restaurant that none of them can read the name of, the sign next to the door rather worn and having seen better days. Ino led the way, squinting in the dim interior and walking past the surprised and sleepy waitress. Anoka easily paid her a few ryo to keep her quiet before catching up to the others, where Hinata was pointing to a lone man in the middle of the seating area, most of the tables empty even though it was near lunch. Their target was of slight build, black hair and dark clothing that would normally make him easy to lose in a crowd if not for the band of armor around his middle and the slashed-out headband on his upper left arm. Daisuke of Kumo, just who they were looking for. Walking competently and calmly up to the man, Ino was all grins as Hinata flanked him on one side and Anoka came around to his opposite. You were rather easy to track down, Daisuke. You that competent no one was going to come after you? Sliding into the chair opposite to him, she wasn't worried that he didn't even flinch and continued with his meal. Looking at the blonde in the black skirt and tank top sporting orange leg and arm warmers, Daisuke scoffed and finished off his soup. Must be a cold day in hell, they're sending kids to track bounties down now. Placing his bowl down and lazily leaning back, ignoring the Hyuga and the redhead on either side of him, he kept his eyes on Ino. To what do I owe the honor of 3 young Uzushio ladies bothering me today? Smiling and pointing a deceptively delicate finger at his chest, Ino was still feeling confident. You made quite a mess back home. We're just here to take you in and make sure you pay up. One way or another. Humming and nodding as if understanding a great problem at long last, Daisuke leaned forward to smirk at Ino. I think it might be a real bad idea for you to be here. See? Maybe you should run along before something bad happens to you. Ino snaps her fingers, Anoka's chains appearing from her hands and winding around Daisuke's body, quickly and efficiently. Yeah, we're not too worried about anything bad happening to us. You should worry about yourself. Daisuke began to chuckle, prompting a raised eyebrow out of Ino. You're certainly unbothered by all this. Wanna clue a girl in on the joke? Ino did her best to ignore the goosebumps rising all along her skin. Unable to move or mold chakra by this point, Daisuke flicked his head towards the door. You'd be better off running home and sending back that super strong husband of yours. Might save you in the long run. Seeing some surprise enter the younger girl's face, Daisuke couldn't help but chuckle some more. You might be able to get away if you leave me, but you certainly won't be making it out of the area alive so long as you have me. What have you done? Hinata had a chakra-laden finger pointed at his temple, Byakugan activated and scanning the area. Little ol' me? Oh nothing. I was just told to wait here and enjoy a happy little lunch. Daisuke's smirk grew even more as Ino turned to look at a worried-looking Hinata. Put him down. Ino barely finished her sentence before Hinata knocked Daisuke out, Anoka easily lifting him up and sealing him away in one of Naruto's special transporting scrolls. What's the damage, Hinata? Ninja, a lot of ninja. Town's surrounded. Ino nodded and stood, then we need to go. Now. That would be a bad idea. A gravelly voice answered them, prompting all 3 women to turn towards the door. Inoki was walking his way towards them, alone but with a cat, caught the canary grin on his face. I wanted the brat but got some bait instead. It'll have to do. Ino and Anoka closed ranks with Hinata, the smaller pale-eyed girl still scanning the surroundings. I doubt I can't see him. Oh girl, I've been fighting Konoha for a long, long time. You Hyuga are an easy group to trick once you start thinking about it. Opening his jacket a bit, he showed off several seals lining his clothes. But enough about that, just come with me quietly, you hear? I want your man, not you. Ino put on a grin, fingers twitching and wondering if they could all Haration fast enough. You'll have to get in line, we all have dates with him first. Oh feisty, I'd expect as much. Inoki stopped half a dozen paces from them, hopping up and sitting on one of the empty tables. Also, he won't be flashing in here and saving the day anytime soon. I made sure to have a barrier put up to prevent such. Pesky thing really, and pretty chakra intensive, but worth the effort. Inoki was going to continue, but a large man ducked his way into the restaurant. Decked in heavy samurai-inspired armor in red and brown, a wide-brim red hat on his head, Inoki was all smiles as Han joined him at his side. Han, sorry but your opponent isn't here. The steam user shrugged, adjusting the portable furnace on his back with a sigh. No matter. I've waited this long, I can wait a bit more. As the two men talked to each other, Ino edged a bit to look at Hinata. Have you tried to jump? Hinata nodded as she connected subtle chakra strings to Anoka and Ino. He wasn't lying, that barrier is up and doing its job. We'll have to run. Unless the idea forming in her mind could work out. Coming forward just behind Ino, she coated a finger in chakra and began to draw on the other girl's back. Stall for a bit. I have an idea. Inoki turned back to face them. Look, girls, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Sit, relax, we'll send a messenger and clear all this up quickly. You don't have to die. Inoki's eyes trailed to the taller redhead. You though, sorry, but we'll be taking you into custody. Uzumaki blood is so valuable. Anoka sighed, stepping forward primly. Why do this? Didn't you all agree to a tentative peace at the Kage summit? Why break that so quickly? She wanted to keep his attention on her, not sure what Hinata was up to but hopeful it was a plan out of here. Because that boy is upsetting the balance of things. Order must be maintained. Inoki sniffed and raised a hand to pat it against Han's side. The Jinchuriki are tools to help maintain that order. That the yellow flash's brat thinks he is above such a duty is his own fault. Such a hellspawn that I can't wait to see snuffed out. Ino's body was tense, but she did her best not to make any sudden movements. So you're going to start a war over your feelings about him? Now? Do you really think it'll end well once Naruto finds out about this? Oh, don't you worry, we have something special in mind for him. Seems to have worked on you easily enough. Inoki's plan had been simple enough. Lure the Yuzukage or someone close to him far away from Yuzu, trap them in a wide area barrier and sick the gobi on him. Simple and effective. If he had to commit hundreds of ninja to the plan? Well, so be it. Hinata finally finished, leaning around and giving Inoki the finger. Well, this has been entertaining, but we should be leaving now. Chakra added to the seal on Ino's back, Han makes to jump towards them, a superheated kunai already leaving his hand before the world around them warps and shifts. With a heavy pull that was not normal for the Haration, all three women were gone, an irregular bubble of space carved out of the floor and ceiling where they used to be. Han sighed, coming to a stop and turning back to his Kage. What now, my lord? Inoki sighed but shrugged, taking the setback for what it was. We have the contingency in place, so your job is the same, make for the next point with the barrier team and do not stop for anything. Han bowed deeply to Inoki. Yes, Lord Suchikage. And then he was gone, dust kicked up from his high-speed shunshin. Left behind, Inoki frowned and stared down into the empty space where the girls used to be. If nothing else, I've confirmed it works. That's enough for me. Standing and groaning at the stiffness in his back, he chuckled as he walked back outside. All this excitement, I almost feel young again. Far away back in Yuzushio, Hinata, Ino, and Anoka were unceremoniously dropped in the ninja reception office. Around them there was organized chaos, a hurried energy that Ino picked up on immediately as she picked herself up off of the floor and waved off a passing ninja who tried to help her up. What's going on? What did we miss? At the desk and issuing minor orders, it's the green-haired Kion who leans forward to answer her. Lord Uzumaki issued an alert. No danger as of yet, but all of the Yuzu ninja forces are at stage 3 readiness at the moment. Here she paused and took in the three women. Are you okay, Lady Uzumaki? Just fine, it was just a long jump from grass. Rubbing her sore backside and considering her low chakra, Ino turned and helped Anoka to her feet, but we caught our bounty. Happen to know where Naruto is? We have some news for him. She wasn't ready to hear the litany of I told you so from him, but better that than being stuck captured by Iwa. Kion shook her head. No, my lady, no one can find him at the moment. Ino nodded as she and Anoka turned back to the struggling Hinata. Hey sis, you okay there? Burned through too much chakra? Sorry, breaking through that time/space barrier was a bit of a hack job, so my chakra isn't the best right now. Standing and holding a hand to her midsection, Hinata stands enough for the others to see the blood pooling in her hand and down her front. Looks like that Iwa Jinchuriki got a lucky hit in. Try as she might, she couldn't focus enough to heal herself. Something was going haywire with her chakra right now. That barrier breaker hadn't been the most stable work she had ever done. Sorry. And then she was down, the pain overwhelming her. Ino was at her side in an instant. Hinata. Two hands pressed down on the wound, careful not to rip the kunai free, for fear of increasing the bleeding. There was already so much blood. Anoka was already turning back to the reception crew. Get me Karen on the radio now. We need to get to the medical level. Chains out, she was already gathering up Hinata and making for the bank of elevator doors. Just their luck, chaos and problems, and no Naruto around. What else could go wrong? The blonde-haired Mihoshi called out to them as Ino trailed after Anoka and Hinata. Lady Ino. I received word that a hostile ninja is being brought in that was captured just before Lord Naruto left. What should I have done with them? Mind frazzled but knowing she couldn't do anything to help Hinata right now, she tapped Anoka on the shoulder once. Take care of her, K? Got it, take charge here. And then she was gone with Hinata, elevator door closing behind them. Ino nods once before turning back, focusing on what was in front of her for now. Who is it? Kuratsuchi from Iwa. Apparently she was here with a man calling himself Tobi. She surrendered peacefully. Ino's grin is feral as she nods and walks forward. Send her straight here, I'll be having some words with the woman myself. This was just perfect. Anything else? Mihoshi nodded. Now that the alert has been issued, we've spotted a large chakra source heading our way from the land of fire. Not close enough yet to confirm who or what it is, but the size suggests somewhat of at least major Kage levels. Ino is frowning as she strides forward, doing her best to ignore Hinata's blood on her hands, or a Jinchuriki maybe? It's possible, Lady Ino, you'd have to get down to the barrier team to confirm for sure. Ino nods. Then that's where I'll be. I'll reset my radio, and you can reach me on it from here on. When it rained it poured, huh? It couldn't be the Iwa Jinchuriki, he was much too far away to have made it this far already. Huh, Kumo then? Or someone else? Naruto better hurry it up and get back, they had an emergency on their hands. Switching her radio back onto home channels, she keyed in, this is Flower Garden to Silken Fist, can you meet me in the barrier room? Gentle Death is injured and we have a guest to entertain. Ino waited for a few breaths as the chaos unfolded around her, ninja coming and going from the balcony to continue rapid patrols while keeping the general populace out of the loop. Tayuya's voice was firm when she finally replied, I'll be there. What's Gentle's condition? Unknown. There was more silence before Ino heard a tired sigh. I'll meet you in the basement and fill you in. Roger that, I'll bring our friend. Ino turned as there was commotion at the balcony entrance. En and Niji were there, carrying a bound and knocked out Kuratsuchi. Her day just got really busy. Again she keyed her radio, Flower Garden to Barrier Maid, you up to date yet? Karen's voice answered her near instantly, I'm already on my way to medical, I'll have her secure and stabilized, don't you worry. I'm not worried, she's too stubborn to die from something like that. Ino released a breath she didn't realize she was holding. Hearing Karen was already on her way helped ease her nerves as En and Niji walked up to her. Let's go, I have some words for her. Scene change, Naruto quietly watched the farmland float by as they continued their journey in their carriage. Nestled safely on their comfortable seat, she didn't mind for relaxed into her side while she chatted away with Koyuki and Cheyenne. Even with the peaceful atmosphere and not a single bandit in sight, Naruto couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something from Naruto was bugging her. She could tell he was angry. More enraged than he had ever been in his life. Why? Koyuki could tell that the resident blonde ninja was bothered by something and tried to gain her attention. Naruto? You seem off. Is everything alright? No. Naruko's quick and terse answer silenced everyone, and she sighed and shook her head. Not something here. It's Naruto. Something's wrong, and he's very, very pissed off. Cheyenne raised an eyebrow at that information. How can you tell? We're so far away, you're not getting updates from your radios, are you? Shrugging, Naruko turned to face them all. No, just a feeling I have. Something in my chest. Fa nudges her with a comforting smile on her face. Maybe it's one of those twin links? You know, one twin stubs their toe and the other one feels it from across the house? Thinking it over and considering her more than extraordinary origins, Naruko shrugs. Anything is possible, I guess. If what she was feeling was from Naruto, she didn't want to even consider what could be going on back home to have him this angry. Best to focus on the here and now. More importantly to us right now, that shifty guy I'm keeping a watch on isn't far from us. Their caravan is a few minutes behind us. Koyuki feels a seed of nervousness grow in her chest. Are we being followed? Naruko shakes her head. No, they're not following us. Just happen to be going in the same direction. My clone is feeding me information about them. Naruko turns lazy eyes to Cheyenne. You're from around here. Know anyone by the name Kakunajo? Or Yorinojo? There are two guys with the caravan with those names that were following this Shun dude. Humming and looking up as she thinks about it, Cheyenne snaps her fingers abruptly. If they're who I think they are, they're the former bodyguards of the vegetable daimyo. But to be among commoners this far from the capital? Maybe they're on the run? Koyuki is already nodding her head along with the idea. Wouldn't be too much of a shock if they were on the run. Daimyo killed while under their watch, they've most likely been shamed and cast out. Or maybe. Koyuki turned to Cheyenne. What are the odds they're protecting someone else? Pretty high. Kakunajo especially was the type not to give up on his mandate. His loyalty was to the daimyo to a fault. For him to be out here, it has to be for a reason. He's the type that would have rather died than live on after the daimyo fell. Cheyenne turns to Naruko. Can you instruct your clone to gather any more information on who they are with? Perhaps it is someone close to the daimyo. Someone we can meet with. That was why they were here, to build ties and relations with the rest of the smaller nations around the land of demons. Fu sits up straight as Naruko does the same. Maybe we'll get lucky and they know where the daimyo's daughter has run off to. Fu wanted to have the best outlook possible for this trip. Koyuki frowns at the thought. That would be dangerous. It'd mean she'd have been exposed all this time and in danger. We'd need to make contact with her, quickly. Naruko sighs and motions out the window. I can make another clone, send it back to ask some questions. Well, it wouldn't hurt. Koyuki watches as Naruko nods and does as she said, making a clone that saluted them and ran off back the way they came. Could they get lucky this time? Behind the coach carrying Koyuki and the others, Haruna disguised as Shun sat huddled among the cart and their wares, while Yorinojo drove the horse pulling them and Kakunajo walked alongside them calmly. Do you think our message has reached Konoha yet? It's been so long and we've gotten nothing back yet. Kakunajo patted the side of the cart with an understanding look. My lady, I'm sure they've received it by now and have a team on the way. We'll just have to make do with what they send us. With our lack of funds, they might not have seen us as a priority. Haruna sighed. Ninja, nothing but trouble. Her mind still focused on the Jainin that had been pursuing her all this time. The three brothers continuing to edge ever closer to finding her. We have to do something. Perhaps we can plead our case to someone else? Maybe even Yuzushio? I hear they take missions like ours. Kakunajo hummed and thought that over. Yuzushio was a newer nation but had plenty of political power behind it. The daimyo of Spring apparently running things for them along with a few other high-profile names. But with what little funds we have, how could we even get a mission to them? Haruna leaned back and looked up into the cloud-filled sky. It's all beginning to feel hopeless. Like we have no options left. She looked down to the cheap clothes and useless trinkets around her. Maybe this pauper's life is what I'm meant for. Yorinojo looked back to his lady and shook his head. Nonsense. You'll see. The team from Konoha will show up, and we'll carry out our plan for dealing with the Jainin and their followers. You'll regain control and we can save our country. Kakunajo chuckled. You're in high spirits today, Yuri. Ah well, those women from earlier have me inspired. So beautiful, and the tall one, she was a dead ringer for Yuki Fujikaze. Haruna giggled, as if that famous actress would be all the way out here. Smiling and turning her gaze to the countryside around them, Haruna's good mood dims. I don't want to meet my end so soon. Yorinojo thumps a fist against his chest. Don't you worry, my lady, our duty is to protect you, with our very lives if necessary. You shall make it through this. I'd rather it not come to that. You both deserve to make it through this with me for all your hard work and dedication. Haruna turned her eyes to the road, missing the happy blush on Yorinojo's face as he too turned back to watch the path. Ahead of them, she spotted a shorter blonde woman, dressed in black shorts and an orange tank top with a short black jacket over such. It was one of the women from the town. Was she not part of the other group then? Letting the cart pass her, the Naruto clone easily stood and paced along beside them with a carefree grin on her face. Wonderful weather out today, isn't it? Slightly on edge, Kikunajo makes sure he is between this woman and Haruna. It is a pleasant day out today, isn't it? Seeing the girl nod and continue to smile, Kikunajo held out a hand towards the cart. Was there something in our stock that caught your attention? It's odd to see someone wait like this for us. Was she a scout working for the Jainin? Had they been spotted finally? Keeping her hands in sight and lacing them behind her head as she walked, the clone kept her smile firmly in place. No. I was just asked to deliver a message, nothing too crazy. Seeing all three flinch, the clone mentally made a note of it. On behalf of the Spring Daimyo, Koyuki Uzumaki, and the Land of Demons Priestess Cheyenne, and further as a representative of Uzushio, I'm wondering if you know the whereabouts of the daimyo's daughter. A finger was held out in front of her, silencing her as Kikunajo's face darkened as his eyes darted up and down the road. Please, do not say her name aloud. While this was fortuitous, they were still on the run and needed to be careful. You say you're from Uzushio? The Spring Daimyo is with you? Watching the girl nod easily, Kikunajo could feel a bit of hope enter his chest. Thank the thousand. Are you out here because Konoha's passed the mission along to you instead? Maybe that was why a Konoha team hadn't made it to them yet. The clone shakes its head. No. It's actually Cheyenne who thought she recognized you and she wanted to be sure. The clone looks up and down the road and takes in their threadbare appearance. Do you require assistance? Sighing heavily as that should be obvious, Haruna sits up and eyes the violet-eyed girl. Is that not obvious? Yorinojo sighs and holds up his hand to display a zero sign. We're sorry, but we don't have much money right now after the coup. We can pay you back after we regain control and dash. The Naruto clone held up in hand while shaking her head. Don't worry about the money. It was Koyuki's plan for this trip to meet with the daimyo and hash out potential trade and alliances. So helping you will help us in the long run. The clone pointed a finger further ahead, over a hill that they were beginning to climb. I'll let the others know and stop the coach we're in. We can link up and negotiate things properly. That all right? Kikunajo nodded and bowed his head. That is more than all right. We shall meet up with you momentarily. Kikunajo's eyebrows raise nearly into his hairline as the girl salutes him before poofing away in a cloud of smoke. A shadow clone? It was so well made that he hadn't even noticed. Intriguing. Yorinojo looks back towards him. Think it might be a trap? If it is, it's a poorly thought out one. To name-drop Koyuki and Cheyenne in the same sentence? Wouldn't make sense. Kikunajo sighs and looks to Haruna with a small smile. It is in the end your decision, my lady. We can turn around and head back the way we came. Make a run for it. Shaking her head, Haruna was done running at this point. Either she was telling the truth, or we speed things along. I want to save my people. Now. Haruna did wonder about why the Spring Daimyo would be all the way out here to begin with. What could vegetable have that spring couldn't produce itself? Why involve demon country? So many questions. At the least, I'm sure we can find a way to use this. Kikunajo nodded and motioned for Yorinojo to continue. As you say, my lady. It was a waiting game now, but that small part of him still had hope. Things were on the upswing finally. Scene change, dumped harshly on the ground and rolling to his feet, Obito rips his mask away as he faces Naruto. He quickly takes in the cavernous space, the single skylight high above them, and the rows upon rows of seals that were lighting up on the walls. Before he had a chance to phase out and leave, the entire space was bathed in that same eerie yellowish light that Naruto had exuded earlier. Of course, Uzumaki shenanigans. Your mother would be proud of you, if she had lived. What sort of cave was this? The ground was jagged and yet brittle. Was this cold lava? Naruto grunted, cracking his knuckles and leveling a glare at the older man. You're just digging yourself a deeper hole, you know that, right? Rolling his eyes, Obito takes a deep breath to steady himself. He could still salvage this. It didn't have to end in a fight. He could make the boy see reason. None of this is necessary. I want what you want after all. A world at peace. Real peace. Obito pointed at the black-clad Naruto, with a smirk. Besides, fighting me is just going to exhaust yourself. When you do, I'm just going to walk out of here. Naruto shrugs, eyes never leaving the one-eyed man. You say that, but I bet that dimensional phasing trick of yours isn't working too well, is it? Naruto began to pace to the right, Obito doing the same to keep distance from the teen. I'm going to be upfront about this. This isn't going to be quick. Nor painless. You are directly responsible for taking away my parents. For how shitty my own life had ended up. So I'm going to turn you inside out. Possibly literally. Chuckling and producing a kunai, Obito shook his head. I've been around a long time, boy. Seen things, done things you couldn't even hope to imagine. I was your father's student. A true master of the Sharingan. I'd been pulling strings and urging the world along a path that I saw fit. You think you can stop me? Armies can't even touch me, boy. Obito spit on the ground at Naruto's feet. You certainly are your father's son at the least. That same confidence that borders on arrogance, especially to think you can take me on alone. Stopping in his tracks, Naruto turned Rinnegan eyes towards Obito and savoring the surprise in the older man's eyes. You just keep on talking. His body burst into golden light, chakra coating his form easily. Usually this would be the part where I would try to talk you down. That I'd give a damn as to why you've done all of this. But today? Right now? 5 clones burst into existence around him. Like I said, I'm going to turn you inside out. And you should know. I'm never alone. Kurama? Yeah, Naruto. Let's rip him apart. Finally. Chapter 74. Naruto frowned as his clones encircled Obito, who had yet to make a move against them. Naruto had been cautious at first, remembering his thoughts after learning that Kakashi could bend literal space and time to his whim. The thought of anyone being able to hop into a separate dimension at will was a terrifying one. You could do anything if you thought about it hard enough. Avoid crazy damage and techniques. Slip away to get a good night's rest and avoid amorous wives. Build a whole new world just for yourself if you wanted to and had the manpower for it. Obito seemed to be the type to use his abilities just to avoid damage and travel when he needed to, which seemed like such a waste to Naruto. The man had no imagination. Naruto had his arms crossed as the clones closed in around the Uchiha. You know. You really could have done some incredible stuff with your abilities. Obito frowned, eyes tracking as many of the clones as he could. I have done incredible things, you just weren't around to see them. Shrugging and planning out how this was going to go, Naruto mentally downgraded the Uchiha in his mind. Sasuke had a better mentality than this douche. You say that, but considering the world is still such shit, I don't really believe you. Wasn't Obito just spouting that he wanted a world at peace? Why not use all this time to actually work towards that, instead of letting conflict after conflict rage on all this time? All those lost ninja lives in useless wars, all the dead and displaced civilians caught in between. For what? Fingers twitching as he tried and failed again to dimension shift away, Obito sighed. Are you sure you want to go down this route? I have an end goal that I will see to its completion. If I have to kill you now versus later, I will. Rolling his eyes, Naruto gave a mental command to his clones, the clone using the Azure Realm taking the lead. Arms opening up to show metallic augmentations, kunai with exploding notes, were launched at speed towards Obito. He was quick to dodge and jump out of the way, narrowly avoiding the destruction while gloating. I'm responsible for that little Nagato brat and his paths. You think using the same tactics against me will do you any good? Ducking under something that looked suspiciously like a missile, Obito had to bend nearly 90 degrees backwards to avoid a hand that sailed over his nose that was grasping for his forehead. The human path had made an appearance then. You'd have better luck trying to kill me with a simple kunai. Naruto was grinning as he watched the battle unfold. You know, that sounds like fun. I'm sure Tachan or Hinataheim would question about what it would be like to fillet a live human. Naruto's smirk grew as Obito attempted a grand fireball and the Preta clone absorbed the technique. But I really do want to see what happens to a human body when you turn it inside out. So you're going to be my guinea pig. Tapping into the chakra of his donated and distorted right arm, Obito surprised one of the clones with a wooden spike to the chest, as if I'll give you the chance. His victory was short-lived as another clone was suddenly at his side with a wide grin and glowing seals around its wrists. Taste the rainbow, bitch. An explosion rocked the area and a cloud of smoke filled the cave chamber. Obito was rocketed away to smash into the cave wall, coughing and hacking up blood all the while. Below him and unseen in the smoke, Naruto easily made a new clone to replace the one lost. When the dust cleared and Obito caught his breath, he grunted and spit blood on the ground when he was met again with 6 identical Narutos. It doesn't have to be this way, you know. Obito ducked under another kunai and shuriken assault from the Azura clone, dodging for all that he was worth. With my power and strength, we could force this wretched world to see things our way. Yes, my peace will not be clean, but it would be a just one. No one else will have to die in the future. We can all have what we want. What we need. No more shadow games between villages. Taking everything in and nodding along as Obito talks, Naruto's eyes held their hard edge. You aren't wrong, I suppose. I am strong. Strong enough to make everyone else bow down to my wishes. Peace would be secured and conflict would grind to a halt. Naruto watched as Obito attempted a massive fire technique that would normally have obliterated the space they were battling inside of. Instead, it was once more the Preta clone that stepped in the way to absorb the chakra and dispel the technique. Except it would only be temporary. Fleeting. The second I show weakness, the moment I am gone from this world, it will all come crashing down. Obito was panting as his mind raced to both figure out the best way to end this quickly and re-establish his Kamui techniques. There had to be a way. You are weak and a fool. Just a little boy who doesn't have the strength to do what is needed. Slipping under a sloppy right hook, Obito lodged a kunai into the chest of the attacking clone above him. Frowning as he had a second of warning as his kunai sizzled, the explosion that sent him tumbling away was expected in the end. Did this brat use explosions in everything he did? Your weakness is okay in the end. I'll use you. Your strength and the QB inside of you will be the catalyst to help build a more just world. I'll just have to kill you first. Naruto laughs as with a thought his sword is unsealed and bouncing on his right shoulder, just like that? You'll have to kill me? Another thought and he's flashing into close range, sword already swinging in a tight arc that Obito can't avoid. There is a scream of pain and rage, blood trails his sword's edge, and the Uchiha's left arm goes flying before Naruto is flashing away again to watch from a distance. You have a lot of nerve thinking you can fight so evenly against me. You can barely fight off my clones as it is. It didn't matter that Naruto was intentionally dragging this out and taking it easy. His only concern and hard line was making sure Obito never touched him. He certainly didn't want his girls to worry. Not after Orochimaru. Clutching the stump of his arm and willing his body to begin the healing process, Obito turns hate-filled eyes towards the Uzumaki clan head. Laugh now, boy. Even if you get lucky and kill me, someone even more terrifying is coming for you. When that day comes, you'll have no one capable of helping you. Pulling on the Deva path, Naruto opens a single palm and waves it down towards the ground. In response, Obito is crushed down by an unseen force, laid out flat on his back. Seems pretty vague. One day I'll need saving? As if none of my wives will be there? Or my best friend who is admittedly a much stronger Uchiha than you? Or any of the other villages that I've worked hard at building friendships and alliances with? Another mental command and the Azura clone is at Obito's side, latching onto his remaining arm. Arms bulging with artificial muscle, there's a wet tearing sound and Obito's remaining arm goes flying into the distance with a pain-filled scream. Yeah, I still dream of a world at peace. Where people can live and love and dream without the threat of war on their shoulders. A world where bloodshed isn't needed. But I know better now. Some people just won't learn unless they are forced to. Forced to see the bigger picture. Naruto easily tuned out the dead man's screams. This was someone who deserved all of the pain he was going to receive, and Naruto was just the agent that made sure he got his punishment. So I'm going to make that my job. I'm going to show men and women like you that you're the ones in the wrong. That the rest of the world can move on and learn to love and accept each other. That they can be at peace without constant fighting and war. And you? Here the Naraka clone finally comes forward, summoning the King of Hell to eat Obito's body in order to heal him completely. Naruto waited, patient as Obito's body was spit back out and limp onto the ground. You'll just be one of the first to miss out of what could have been. Panting and realizing that his chakra was going haywire, Obito struggled to roll over onto his knees. What have you done? Naruto shrugged, the rest of his clones coming around to surround Obito once more, but making no more moves beyond that. Be thankful, I've given you a gift, much better than that hodgepodge body with the grafted remains of Hashirama. A renewed body all your own. The price is simple. Submit to me. Body and soul, and I just may spare you. A lie, but Naruto was curious to see what Obito would do with this chance. Did he have any honor left in him? Or was he fully the twisted and corrupted monster Naruto assumed he was? Obito's mind whirled. Where had it all gone so horribly wrong? He should have no problems with this boy. He was the pinnacle of what it meant to be an Uchiha, a shinobi. He was the next coming of Madara himself. Yet here he was, tossed around by some wet-behind-the-ears brat whose clan was nearly wiped out. Perhaps, when I stole you from Kushina's dying arms, I should have smashed you against the dirt then. Certainly would have saved me the trouble now. Circulating chakra throughout his body now that it was beginning to settle, he did have to admit that he felt stronger, more in tune with his body than he ever had before. Surely the boy had given him something even stronger than he even realized. You don't understand real pain. What loss is like. What heartbreak is. What betrayal does to your soul. Obito's mind casts back to that fateful day. Kakashi and Rin, surrounded by Kiri ninja. Kakashi's arm buried in Rin's chest to the elbow. The small, sweet smile on Rin's face. His heart ached terribly. I'm going to kill you, and make my new world a reality. He would see her again. He would have her by his side, their team whole again. As it should have been. Sighing and shaking his head, Naruto snaps his fingers and immediately 3 of the clones begin to battle Obito in taijutsu. The Azura path takes the lead, delivering heavy hits and combos to which Obito trades almost equally but tanks or diverts what he can. Whenever the Uchiha looks to get the upper hand and has a chance to strike back, the animal path forces the Azura clone to switch places with the Preta path through its summoning ability. The Preta would then absorb the chakra within Obito's strike, leaving him open to the Azura to strike him again with any manner of augmenting limbs. Through it all, Obito is nearly foaming at the mouth, mind racing and failing to come up with a solution to this battle. I promise. Uzushio will fall again just like we achieved before. Everything and everyone you love will be buried for your arrogance. Watching and planning on what he was going to experiment with next, Naruto's thoughts are derailed as Kurama's voice comes screaming into his mind. Stop playing around. Something doesn't feel right, we need to get back. Through the barrier was meant to keep Obito from jumping away with his ability, it also was keeping Naruto from sensing anything from Uzushio. Kurama didn't like it, and wanted to get back quickly. Naruto felt detached as he watched Obito literally get tossed around the darkened space. From heavy strikes from the Azura to explosions and traps set by the animal and Preta path. It had quickly turned into a game Naruto knew he could lose if he lost focus. Yes. This was the man who was responsible for his parents' demise. Something that he could would not reverse. Even so, torturing or killing Obito wouldn't make them happy or bring them back. Sorry Kurama. You're right. Got a little lost there. You've centered me so much, the least I can do is make sure you don't go off the deep end from time to time. Kurama had started to worry there. Something in Naruto had seriously began to shift into a dark place there. Kurama loved a good fight, but this wasn't it. This was a slaughter, one that was overdue. Sighing and bringing up a fist, he coated his knuckles with chakra and began to mold a seal there with a thought, guess this is over then. Dashing in as his clones all jumped away at once, Naruto buried a fist into Obito's gut. Augmented with both Sage Chakra and Kurama's own as he was, his fist nearly blew out Obito's spine from his back. As it was, Obito was sent crashing into the cave wall before bouncing back to fall in a heap onto the rocky floor. Walking forward over the porous and jagged rock, Naruto watched as Obito heaved and coughed up blood. Hands on his hips as he kept a safe distance, Naruto wanted to see what came next. Hey, tell me how it feels in a second, will you? Well, what? Obito again struggled to rise to his knees, getting upright to stare Naruto in the eyes before something began to pull at his navel. Looking down and seeing nothing there, the pull began to increase exponentially. What have you done? Naruto shrugged as Obito's body began to warp. Take a guess. He watched as Obito's screams filled the cavernous space, body twisting and turning before with a wet tearing sound, flesh and bone ripped and tore before a mass of organic material was left in a pile on the ground before him. Humming and making a note not to show this to any of the girls, Naruto motioned to the Naraka path again. Watching the mass twitch and gurgle, something that looked oddly like a heart pumping furiously and copious amounts of blood soaking into the ground, Naruto wondered if Obito was conscious during all of that. The pulsing lungs and sucking sound had him believing that it was a good possibility. Perfect. The Naraka clone did its job, summoning the King of Hell again to heal Obito before spitting his yet again drained body back on the floor. So, how was it? Shall we go with filleting next? Trembling and deciding that he had made a tremendous error, Obito considered that he never should have come to Uzushio. He should have left Kuratsuchi to her fate. I'll. Everything hurt, every nerve ending was on fire. All of his being was pain. Your entire clan is nothing but monsters. The world would be best rid of you. Shaking his head as the human path clone walked forward, Naruto sighed as he watched Obito's mind break in real time. You say you're responsible for pain and his paths, right? So do you know what the human path is really capable of? What of the Naraka path? How about together? No? Well, you're about to learn. Hell is too good a place for someone like you. So I have something else in mind. Here Naruto finally does something different, pulling the Shinigami mask from the seal within his jacket and placing it on his face. You won't win. They'll hate you. The world will despise you. Obito's voice was quiet as he was lifted up by his hair, body spent and chakra nearly depleted. Was this how Madara felt? Fighting against Hashirama and failing all those times. It was like fighting against a literal kami. Naruto nodded once, actually agreeing with that. In a just world, one day they will hate me and that will be fine. Every generation is supposed to look back on their predecessor and weep at what they went through. So they can look forward and build something better. Not that you'll get to see the better world that we'll build. With a thought, Naruto watched as the human path ripped Obito's soul from his body. Said body dropped lifeless to the ground, while Naruto was greeted to a soundlessly screaming ethereal form that seemed to be ranting and raving in place. Knowing he was on a time limit now, Naruto cycled chakra through his mask in order to summon the Shinigami itself, the large kami forming before him to stare down on him and his clone silently. Cautiously and with more care than he felt at the moment, Naruto bowed his head. I have a soul for you, long overdue and yours to do with as you please. A token, yet to be redeemed at a later time. There is more silence as the Shinigami considers Naruto and his clones. Naruto wonders that he might be making a mistake here, but brushes it off. He wanted to be safe, make sure he had a backup, just in case. And Obito and his ilk are terrible enough that he was willing to make this deal. The Shinigami seems pleased enough, nodding slowly in silence before taking the soul of the mad Uchiha from the human clone before eating him and taking him into his gullet. Satisfied with its meal, the kami fades away, leaving Naruto alone with his clones. With his job done and most of his rage settled, Naruto drops the barrier around the cave so he can return home. Suddenly tired and more emotionally worn than he ever expected, Naruto and the clones flash away to return to Uzushio. Appearing on the rooftop of the Uzumaki Tower, Naruto takes a moment to breathe deeply and take in the emotions and feelings of his people. While the ninja were still in a flurry of activity, centered around worry and anxiety, more so there was determination, confidence, hope laced in there. More on the general population as always felt so happy, at peace. They were still so centered on their lives, happy and ready for a new and better day. Still he had to chuckle as he realized he did leave behind a bit of a panic. Oh, just now remembering that? Yeah, sorry buddy. Guess I got carried away. Inside his mindscape, Kurama shook his head. I can't blame you. Faced with your parents' killer? If anything, you showed some major restraint even if it was necessary. I'm just glad I got you to snap out of it. Dispelling his clones, and sitting down to kick his feet out over the edge of the roof, Naruto couldn't help but feel a deep pit in his heart. If it was necessary, then why do I feel so empty? Vengeance does not always bring absolution, Naruto. Most times you need to live, grow, and come to terms with your loss in your own way. That is how you can come to terms with your feelings. Plus, I'm sure the women in your life will be more than willing to help you. Here Kurama paused to really consider how to say what he wanted properly. They'll listen to you, you know, if you sit down and talk with them. They trust you completely and you should do the same. Naruto chuckles as he nods and leans back on his hands to look up into the bright blue sky. You aren't wrong. I should sit down with them, talk about this. Maybe I could use a good back rub tonight. Idly something tickled on his senses, but he didn't really have the energy to fully dive into it yet. You'll be fine, brat, just open up to them and be honest. You showed some decent self-control, so they won't be lecturing you on being reckless. Heh, thanks buddy. I'll do that. Naruto nods and keys his radio. At the least he should cancel his alert. This is Mr. 9 to control, I'm canceling my previous alert. There is a moment of silence before a professional-sounding woman's voice pipes up, Roger that Mr. 9. Silken Fist requests your presence in your office as soon as you're able. Understood, I'm on my way. Naruto took a few moments to look out over the city, recentering himself and vowing not to let his rage get the better of him in the future like it just had. He could have killed Obito near instantly if he had wanted, but had dragged it out. Obito could have gotten lucky. Something he couldn't afford. Standing with a groan and dusting himself off, with another look out over the city streets, he flashes away to his office. There was more work to be done, it seemed. Scene change, we can take a break here, we're more than halfway to Yuzu by now. Killer Bee held up a fist as Team Samui dropped down to the forest floor around him. He had stopped them in a small clearing where there was just enough sunlight filtering through the canopy to remind them that it was just afternoon, but it certainly wasn't blinding. Pulling free a ration bar, he motioned to the space. Take a breather, relax, eat and drink, and then we'll continue on in half an hour. While he had the stamina to keep going for days if need be, he had to remember that these were normal humans. They did not have such inexhaustible energy reserves. Plopping down onto a log and sighing, Samui frowned as she pulled a flask of water free from her pack. Do you think Iwa is going to hold up their end of the deal? Personally, she barely trusted the Stone Village at all. Such was the fate of villages who regularly crossed former allies. They better if they know what's good for them. This will end badly for both villages if we don't work together. B has no illusions on how this will go without Iwa's help. Sure, he could still put down Naruto, but the rest of his village might be a bit of a stretch. That was why they needed the distraction from Iwa Ninja. They stand a lot to benefit from this operation as well as it is. No point in losing out on the spoils. Omoi munches away on his own ration bar as Karui gives her team leader a thoughtful look. Should we split up or stick together once we make it to Wave? Samui shrugged as she wiped her mouth after taking her drink. We don't have any information on targets or locations yet. Prudent planning would suggest we stick together. We're entering enemy territory, containing a man capable of fighting on the same level as Kage. Best to get in quickly, capture at least one target of opportunity, and make our way out. Karui huffed and crossed her arms. I still think that Uzumaki is blown out of proportion. There's no way he's as strong as he says. Omoi sighed and scrubbed at his head, his own thoughts running in circles on the matter. We have physical proof that he's leveled several sound bases and fought against a rampaging Biju. Can any of us say the same? He was beginning to suspect that Karui's hatred of the Uzumaki might be impacting her judgment. He'd have to keep an eye on her. Killer Bee sighed, turning back to look at the assembled team. Less speculation for now. We'll have plenty of planning to do once we link up with the scout teams and have more information to go off of. Bee himself needed to start thinking about his own mission. Fighting against the container of the Nine Tails. Surely this was not going to be an easy thing. Oh, now you're beginning to worry about it? I was worried about it before. I'll win, but afterwards. So quickly you dismiss the young man's efforts, you may find that a mistake. He hasn't trained like we have. He can't possibly have bonded with the Kyuubi like you and I have. That'll be our advantage. If you say so, Gaki. Grumbling about know-it-all Biju, Bee turned to look out into the forest and overlooking Samui, airing herself out with a happy sigh. Now wasn't the time to ogle, the mission came first. Why were the leaves giggling? With a start, Bee tossed a kunai up and into the canopy, which produced a yelp of surprise before a white-clad body fell to the ground before them. Everyone suddenly alert, they are greeted to the sight of the Toad Sage himself. Jiraiya of the Densetsu no Sannin had decided to pay them a visit. Well, this is a problem. Samui's comment filled the silence for all of a moment while Jiraiya grumbled and rolled to his feet. Oh, now why'd you go and do that? I had a great view from where I was. Grumbling and standing to his full height, the elder sage scrubbed at his head with a sigh. I swear, kids these days. Karui and Omoi took up defensive stances just behind Samui, who was already up and had a kunai in hand. Why are you here, Konoha-nin? Me? Jiraiya looked at them with genuine surprise. That was rich coming from a group of Kumo-nin in a country not their own. I'm just chasing rumors, nothing more. Why don't we all calm down a bit, have a chat? Jiraiya grinned and summoned one of his favorite toads, sitting on his head and producing a long pipe to smoke from. Need I remind you, you're in High no Kuni. It's only right that you stop by and say hello to the associated village if you're going to be passing through. Karui grunts and points an accusing finger towards the elder man. What would we want to talk to some aging pervert for anyway? Go die in a fire, you trash. Omoy turned to try and calm the redhead with a weak smile. Ma Karui, let's let them handle it, come on, let's finish up our break. But he's a pervert. Jiraiya started to laugh. I'm a super pervert young lady, and don't you forget it. Samui watches it all, while her own thoughts circle around to what this could mean. Konoha usually kept out of situations like this, or failing that, tried to take the high road when they could. That the sage was here meant either they already knew what was up, or they didn't like their toes being stepped on like this. They were allies with Yuzu in the end, or at least said they were. She could play along at least. Sir Jiraiya, a question then, if you're willing to talk. Exhaling a long plume of tobacco smoke, Jiraiya turned mirthful eyes towards the busty blonde. Anything for you, young lady. Ask away. Getting a subtle nod from B as everyone began to relax a bit, Samui took a few steps forward and placed a hand on her hip. We're hunting for our missing Jinchuriki. Rumor has it that the Yuzukage has killed her. We want to know if that's true, and if he did. Why? Samui didn't want to admit that she felt something for Yujito's loss, but it had been bothering her ever since the Reikage had decided she was a lost cause. She wanted answers. Blinking at her as Jiraiya couldn't believe anyone would start a rumor that Naruto of all people would kill a fellow Jinchuriki, let alone a hottie like Yujito. It took a lot of self-control not to laugh at these kids. Well, that's a load of shit, I'll tell ya. Pausing to knock out his ashes onto the ground while his toad grumbled but kept an eye on the opposing group, Jiraiya set about repacking his pipe with ease, just to make sure. You're talking about that totally stacked blonde who seems pretty moody most of the time? Jinchuriki of the two tails? She ain't dead, alive and well, in fact, in Yuzu. Making a life for herself last I heard. Seeing Samui ponder that and not liking the look on her face, B steps forward with a frown. Yujito was too loyal for something like that. I find it hard to believe, even if it's coming from you. Jiraiya shrugged, idly flicking his thumb and producing a small fire there. Relighting his pipe with a smile, he shook his hand to extinguish the flame. Doesn't matter to me if you believe me or not. You asked a question and I answered honestly. He casts another bored look over the group of four, before sighing and nodding his head slowly. Fun time was over, it seemed. Listen. Konoha is doing its best to both keep the peace and stay out of this conflict, so let me say this once. Mirthful eyes turned hard and cold in an instant and all of the Kumo ninja felt shivers crawl up and down their backs. Turn around. Now. Go back home. Because there is nothing past this point that is worth your lives. So he did know why they were out here. Shame. They couldn't let him leave then. Killer Bee stepped in front of Team Samui. I's never leaving this sage, we have our mission to perform. Legendary ninja or not, we cannot disobey our orders for you. Shrugging and hopping down from his friend, Jiraiya let him return home and stowed away his pipe. I had to try at least. Just a warning to you, once you reach Yuzu, you won't have any choices for yourselves. Never mind Naruto. All of the Foxden girls would eat these kids alive. Toss in Yugo and his girls, or Sasuke and Sakura? They'd never even touch Naruto. B knows without a doubt by this point that he can't let the Toad Sage leave here. He'd warn the Uzumaki before they could enact their plan, and that would spell disaster for their operation. He'd have to stay behind and put the sage down quickly. Samui, take your team and go. I'll entertain the sage. That's not the plan B. Samui's response was instant as she felt Omoy and Karui perk up behind her. This was one of the Sannin, legendary ninja who had fought against the likes of Hanzo. Jinchuriki he may be, but B would be hard-pressed to fight against such a threat alone. No choice. Get going. I won't let him stop you. Jiraiya shrugged, already hooking a thumb over his shoulder. Oh no. I wasn't going to stop them anyway. I told you, didn't I? I was just here to talk, and they aren't a threat to anyone at this point. Besides, who was he to get in the way of Naruto's fun? B nods his head, flashing Samui and her team a smile and a thumbs up. I'll be fine, I'll meet you at the next point soon enough. B and Jiraiya watched the team race off, dust kicked up from where they jumped and took to the trees in their haste to leave the area. No one wanted to be around when a Jinchuriki decided to go all out. Thanks for letting them go, Lord Jiraiya. Don't thank me yet. It might have been a mercy to put them down now. Yuzu has a particular hatred for Kumo after everything they've done. Jiraiya sighed as he and B began to well up their chakra, both easily dwarfing anything most normal ninja would have encountered in their lives. Still no chance I can convince you to turn around? This could still end peacefully. Loyalty and honor. B's reply is quiet, and Jiraiya gains a solemn face. Doesn't seem like much honor in attacking a nation that wants nothing but peace. But what do I know? Watching the fully realized Jinchuriki begin to draw his swords, Jiraiya summoned Ma and Pa to his sides. I hope this is worth it. Pa was already on one shoulder, focused on the dark-skinned man across from them. This is going to get ugly, isn't it, boyo? Jiraiya nodded as Ma joined his other shoulder, like you wouldn't believe. B was grinning as he artfully drew and held all of his swords. You're one to talk about peace, aren't you? How many have you slain in your years? Hundreds? Thousands? Your hands are no cleaner than ours. Feeling Ma and Pa meld with him and sage chakra begin to circulate through his body, Jiraiya sighed and focused completely on his enemy. I can admit that my past is a bloody one. That's exactly why I want the next generation's future to be free of it. They shouldn't have to go through what I did. But I won't let warmongers like A have their way. Not anymore. Of course, it was a bit of a gamble if he could hold off B. Fighting a Biju was one thing, but a fully realized Jinchuriki? Didn't sound like fun at all. Naruto owed him something special when this was over. Either that or maybe he could guilt Tsunade into healing him back up. In a nurse outfit at that. Things had certainly taken a turn for the better, Haruna had decided. Sure, she had considered that the girl Naruto had been leading her and her protectors into a trap, and had been ready to die if it was so. But here now as she sat across from the Spring Daimyo and the priestess from Demon Country, she decided it was a gamble worth making. She may yet be able to save her people from her father's murderers. So, just so we're clear. Koyuki was smiling as she handed over a small folder with assorted paperwork that Haruna could look over as they talked. Uzushio is trying to find peaceful ways to unite the countries, or at least come to mutual understandings so we can avoid future conflicts. We aren't looking to make your country a vassal state or take control of you. We're looking for friends and allies. To that point, we're offering to help you in any capacity that we can to ensure that you, the rightful daimyo of Vegetable, reclaims the throne. Cheyenne nodded along as Koyuki paused. We originally hadn't known that you still lived, so we had been on the way to your capital in order to negotiate with whoever was still in power. I'm glad to see that we can make sure the rightful leader will be in charge and on the other side of the negotiation table. Cheyenne and Koyuki had listened to Haruna's story calmly, and had both felt anger at the Jainin brothers and their quest for power. They would make sure Naruto and Fu got to them all before they left for their next destination. Haruna gave them a concerned look as she considered their words. Please be careful, the Jainin. The men following me and looking to kill me. They are no laughing matter. They are dangerous. Koyuki is already waving away her concern. As far as she was concerned, no one on this planet was a match for Naruto in the end. The Yuzukage sister, Naruko, will be more than enough for them. Have no fear. Looking to impress the severity of the situation on them more, Haruna opens her mouth to continue, but the coach rocks as an explosion is set off not far away. She looks to the window as Koyuki and Cheyenne give knowing nods, and they all can hear a woman's mad cackling in the air. What was that? Koyuki sighs and shakes her head. That would be Naruko. Probably taking care of either some bandits who thought they'd find an easy mark, or maybe those Jainin you were worried about. Outside, they could hear Fu's voice. Don't go overboard, we need to be able to identify them. You can't turn them into pink mist. In response, Naruko's voice rose to meet her girlfriends. They're the ones who called you a child. They deserve death. Another explosion rocked the area, and Cheyenne offered a shy smile as she tries to steer the conversation back to the future alliance negotiations. So all that said, you'll see that we are more than capable of fielding very talented ninja as well when needed. But we hope to work towards a world that doesn't require such in the long run. Wide-eyed and slowly turning back to the daimyo and priestess across from her, Haruna slumped in her seat. Here she was, running for her life and terrified out of her mind that she was going to die any day now. But here in an instant are these people from Uzushio, casually batting aside her pursuers like toys. Well, she certainly wouldn't be underestimating this group. Well, I guess, let's get to talking then. I'm certainly open to joining your cause if it means a more peaceful region in the future. Koyuki smiled and pumped a fist into the air. That's the spirit. She'd have to remind Naruto to show some restraint later. Riding atop the daimyo's carriage, Teruho and Suzuki chat and share stories with Kakunojo and Urinojo. Kakunojo has a weak smile on his face as all four men do their best to ignore the carnage on display some distance behind them. Sure seems like traveling with your group means less to worry about. Those Yuzushio ninja are very talented. Teruho sighs but nods along. You have no idea. Things have certainly been interesting since we have joined up with the nation. But they did help us out in our time of need and didn't ask for anything in return. They follow their word like it's law. And their Yuzukage is an honorable man. Kakunojo frowns at that, leaning in to make sure none of the women below him hear what he is about to mention. I've heard rumors about the Yuzukage. Seeing he had the other men's attention, he pressed on, that the Yuzukage is a womanizer of the highest order and has an insatiable appetite. Shaking his head immediately, Teruho wanted to set them straight quickly. No, that's not the case at all. Well, not exactly. Another explosion rocks an area and they all turn back to see Naruto tossing two of the Jainin brothers around with ease, explosions, and clones batting the two younger brothers back and forth across an empty and rocky field. Suzuki had to hold in a snicker as the more rotund Jigo was tossed through the air, limbs flailing limply. She really is a handful. Teruho gave thanks it wasn't his job to watch after the spirited blonde. I'm the queen of destruction. Challenge me at your peril. Oh ho 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 ho. Teruho again gave thanks that she was not his responsibility. They are a boisterous lot. Kakunojo was nodding and ignoring the starry-eyed Urinojo. I can tell. Well, at least they didn't have to worry about their assassins anymore. Now he just had to worry about Urinojo developing a crush on the headstrong woman. It'd be the Tsunade situation all over again. Behind the main carriage and further behind Fu driving along the peddler cart the three runaways had been using, Naruto stood tall over the broken and beaten bodies of Ruiga and Jiga. Ruiga, the smaller more runner type of the two, still had enough energy to try and drag himself away, leaving behind a torn bit of one of his blue arm warmers. Naruto considered what she could do to him while the other more heavy-set Jigo was face down in the mud and barely breathing, but he was in one piece, which was all that mattered. You know, for all the shit you've stirred up here, I figured you would be a bigger challenge. Your big brother better be more of a workout than you two were. Ruiga felt like both of his legs might be broken, and had long ago lost his tonfa to who knows where. The demon woman most likely burned them to a crisp by now. If only Renga was here. We'd show you. Harridan. Woohoo, big talk from such a lightweight. Naruto walked up to him, roughly kicking him in the ribs and getting a weak groan of pain for her efforts. The purple-haired man wasn't a looker as far as she was concerned, and he wasn't much of a challenge. Hopefully his bounty would be worth something in the end. You know what, maybe I'll be nice. Seeing his eyes struggle to meet hers while the fat one just gurgled in response, she continued, pledge yourselves to me, and I'll let you live. Finding some energy from somewhere inside of himself, Jiga rolled onto his side to face the monster girl. I'll serve you. I'll do anything. Ruiga nodded quickly, body failing to move as he commanded it. Yes, yes. We'll serve you in whatever capacity that you wish, oh great queen. Preening at being called a queen, Naruto had to admit that it just didn't have the same ring to it as when Fu called her such. Shame. Yeah, never mind. Guys don't really do it for me anyway. Snapping her fingers, two clones pop into existence to slap suppression seals on their chests. They both slump bonelessly to the dirt and Naruto sets about sealing them away for transport. That Haruna woman better offer up a good bounty for y'all when this is all over. You weren't really worth the fight. Now she just needed to convince Fu to have some fun later, and this would be the perfect day. Standing before a humming and glowing green tube, Naruto stared at the naked but healing Hinata as she floated before him. Breathing mask over her mouth and nose while electrical leads hooked to spots on her chest and arms, the steady beeping letting him know that her heart was still beating was a soothing sound. Certainly better than the static that had filled his mind when the others explained that she had gotten hurt. By the Iwaj and Churiki no less. Onoka sighed as she stood next to Naruto, keeping silent now that she had finished explaining the mission and what had gone wrong. She was worried about what Naruto would do, knowing that they had done something foolish and reckless. Would he cast them out? Punish them for endangering themselves? Off to the side she noted Tayuya and Karen also maintaining their silence, no one wanting to break Naruto's mood at the moment. Inside Naruto's mind, a different conversation was taking place. She nearly died because of me. It wasn't your fault, Gaki. Inoki set that trap for me. If he wasn't after me, then she never would have gotten hurt. None of them would have been in danger. Nor would they have been if they had turned around when they realized it was most likely a trap. Sometimes you run into bad luck, Naruto. You can't protect them from everything. I know, just I love her. I love them all, so much. Seeing her like this, it hurts Kurama. I know, but remember, you have to talk to them, don't shut them out. Kurama sighed and lazily waved his tails back and forth. You can make this right, just remain calm and centered. Right. Taking a deep and steadying breath, Naruto considered that he had to thank Naruko when she returned for helping make sure the girls learned the Hiraishin. Without that and Hinata's knowledge on seals, they wouldn't be here right now. Taking Naruto's sigh as a sign of rising anger, Anoka bowed before him to apologize. I'm sorry. We thought I should have been more insistent that we return and not take the risk. We just thought we wanted Anoka was interrupted as Naruto pulled her to her feet and embraced her in a tight but warm hug that she melted into almost immediately. Naruto, I-SHHH. Naruto's voice was calm as he rubbed the back of her head while one arm encircled her waist. Right now, what is important is that you're all home and you're safe. Yeah, I'm upset and we'll get to having a talk about it later, but for now, let's focus on the good. Hinata will heal, nothing permanent happened, so let's leave it at that. Stepping back and letting Anoka go for the moment, Naruto offered her a smile. You're alive. That gives you a chance to make tomorrow a better day. Tears nearly spilling from her eyes, Anoka smiled brightly and nodding quickly, of course. Yes. You're right. She steps in for one more hug, head laying against his chest and savoring the strong sound of his heartbeat in her ear. We will be having a sit down about this though, don't forget that. Naruto had remembered that they had been very cross with him when he had done much the same with Orochimaru. He couldn't let them slide with doing the same. Looking up at the tired-looking Tayuya, Naruto nodded to her. I'm guessing some things came up while I was gone? Tayuya put a hand to her hip as she herself was worried but happy to see Hinata alive and healing. There's a large chakra signature that is headed our way, but it has paused for now. We think it is a Jinchuriki, but unsure of who it could be. Her money was on the Kuma one. Nodding and letting Anoka go, Naruto extended his senses to get a feel for it himself. Yup, it was B, and O. Jiraiya was there, guess he shouldn't have to worry too much for now, the old pervert could hold his own for a while. Looks like Jiraiya intercepted B for us, but I'll go and make sure the old bastard doesn't get in over his head later. But that gives us time to prepare here. Naruto knew that if they were sending B, and Iwa was making moves as well, that meant at least some amount of forces were on their way here. That would be a mistake. Up patrols, I want heavy weapons and multiple teams running overlapping routes all along our border. No one from Iwa or Kumo sets foot in Wave or Uzushio. Naruto considered how he felt and decided to just roll with it. We've built a home here where people shouldn't have to worry about danger or conflict, so let's keep it that way. The citizens shouldn't even hear a raid siren through all of this. I want it taken care of quickly and quietly. Teiwei nodded, I'll see it done. Good. Naruto then turned to Karen with a grin that bordered on sadistic. You said you have Kuratsuchi locked up, right? Karen shivered in multiple ways as those eyes landed on her. Yes. She's in a holding cell still knocked out. Good. She and I have a meeting with the Tsuchikage. Oh yes. Naruto needed to have some words with Inoki. Hurt one of his girls, would he? Time to make his response rather proportional. Kisame considered how his life had gotten to this point. Leader had promised that this life would lead to a better, more just world, and he had followed that ideal all this time. It didn't hurt that he had gotten some primo fights in the meantime and been able to have plenty of fun along the way. But now, as a larger conflict looked to be on the horizon, he was starting to get antsy. Looks like Uzushio is going to be tested soon. Pain nods from behind his desk, eyes looking out over the land of rain. The villages can't help but fight among themselves. I knew that while Uzushio wanted peace, at least a few of the others wouldn't be able to accept it. Destruction is baked into their very being. Turning back to watch Kisame and Konan, the leader of Akatsuki let a small grin grace his face. Now is the test. Will Uzushio still be standing after this or not? Konan steps forward a pace, concern on her visage. Should we offer them assistance? While they weren't officially allies, they had a common goal. To see them snuffed out so early would be disheartening. Shaking his head, Pain waves off her worry. if they cannot weather this, then there is no hope for them to actually build their so-called peace. More, it is a test for Naruto himself. He will now be faced with just how ugly the world can be. Considering it all and deciding it was all above his pay grade, Kisame reached back to finger the hilt of his sword. Say, you mind if I head out and have some fun myself? Pain did not care either way, things were already far outside of their control, you are free to do as you please. Laughing and nodding, Kisame turned to leave with a hand waving goodbye over his shoulder. So you say then, leader. It's been nice knowing ya. Maybe we'll see each other again one day. His footsteps echoing down the hallway, his shark-like grin grew with every step he took away from them. Finally he had the chance to truly cut loose. That Uzumaki brat better have been working on his sword work. Kisame wanted a real challenge. Konan sighed and came to stand next to Pain. Was that wise? Akatsuki is effectively down to just you and I now. We are more than enough to protect Rain. Once this new conflict is done, the next step is to confront Naruto again. He and I have a promise to keep after all. It was time to see if what Pain predicted was going to come true. Would Naruto see the world as Pain did? Or would he hold on to his idealism? They would find out soon enough. Chapter 75. I tell you Akatsuchi, this time next week that pesky Yuzukage brat will be dealt with and Uzushio will once again be a footnote to history. As it should be. Inoki was grinning as he lowered himself down into his specially made chair. His desk was clear for the moment, only recently returned from the ambush that nearly caught those Uzumaki girls. Well, at least one of them would most likely meet her end if that spray of blood was any indicator. Any word from the advanced scouts? Standing behind his Tsuchikage's shoulder, Akatsuchi shook his head. No sir, not yet. They should be infiltrating Uzushio any day now. Good, gives Han time to set up his part of the plan with the barrier unit, he should be about halfway there by now. Here he paused to sniff in disdain as he considered the boy who called himself a Kage. That pretentious little snot, calling himself the Shadow Kage. He's lucky I don't get to face him myself. Inoki believed that he would have no problems annihilating the son of the Yellow Flash. Explosion users were nothing new to Inoki after all. Well, let's settle in and wait for word. What should we do once we destroy that village again? Definitely have to make sure we slaughter every last citizen this time. Especially the Uzumaki. Can't have them coming back like the roaches that they are. Today was going to be a great day, his spirits were soaring. He hadn't thrown his back out even once. Leaning to the side a bit to catch Inoki's eye, Akatsuchi raised a hand. Should we be concerned for Kuretsuchi? We haven't heard from her in a while. Inoki easily waved away his concern. My granddaughter is strong, she'll be fine. She's either off on some scheme of hers to take my chair, or maybe she's even headed to wave herself. That would be a fortunate outcome. She could make a name for herself assisting with the operation. Internally, he had to hand it to his granddaughter, she was highly motivated. If a little headstrong. Time would certainly help temper that little quirk though, as it did for everyone. Both men twitched as his office door burst open, one of his jonin rushing in with a panicked look on his face. My lord. There's a demon. A golden demon is dash abruptly his sentence is cut off as he freezes in place and begins to float off of the floor. Inoki is already standing as he and Akatsuchi watch the man fold in on himself, body squishing and squelching down into a flesh ball roughly the size of a child's toy, before dropping to the floor to seep fluids and blood into the stone. Equal parts horrified and furious, Inoki's eyes turned to the glowing golden Naruto, who casually strolled into his office. On his back was a tied-up bundle that looked like a young woman, but Inoki couldn't see who it was just yet. Naruto held up a hand, saluting the Tsuchikage with a grin. Yo. How's it hanging, Inoki? You. Inoki's face was beginning to turn red as he began to well up his chakra. How dare this brat show up here? Killing his men right in front of him at that? Did he have that much of a death wish? Yeah, see, you might want to calm down a bit. Naruto was still all grins as he pulled the bound and gagged Kuretsuchi around and placed her on her knees in front of him as he paused in the middle of the office. Unless, of course, you want something bad to happen to her. Naruto wasn't one to punish those who weren't a part of the problem. But after the girl admitted that she was back in Uzushio for a rematch, and now that Iwa was marching on Yuzu. Well. He was beginning to lose patience with the entirety of this village. Let's have a chat. Keeping on hand on the back of her neck, he locked eyes with the furious Inoki. Still standing on his chair, but keeping his chakra still, Anoki took in the determined look in Kuretsuchi's eyes. Good, at least she was still ready to fight. You won't be leaving here alive, boy. This was the largest mistake you could have made. Guess he'd get to fight the boy after all. Shrugging and not worried in the least, Naruto noted Akatsuchi making space by edging around Anoki slowly. Yeah, this isn't how I wanted things to go really. At the summit I was being serious. I wanted peace among the various villages and nations. I wanted us to be able to understand one another with words, not violence. But then I got a report that your Jinchuriki is marching on Yuzu right now. And well, peace just doesn't seem possible at the moment. Here Naruto reached forward to tilt Kuretsuchi's head up slightly, making sure her eyes were locked on her grandfather's. So here's the rub. It's not just Kuretsuchi's life on the line here. But every other citizen of Iwagakure is now fully dependent on your actions from here on. Naruto didn't mind the twitches from the two men across from him, instead watching Akatsuchi turn to look out the window to gaze out on the village. Sir. Akatsuchi could see thousands of identical glowing gold blondes all over the village. On rooftops, on the streets. There wasn't a single fight going on at the moment. Most assuredly, the boy had made it clear what he planned to do then and had forced their ninja to stand down. Anoki tried and failed to see some way out of this at the moment. Blasted brat, he never gave any hint that he was willing to stoop so low as to take an entire village hostage. What do you want? Sitting down and taking a deep breath to control his heart rate, he'd play the boy's game for now. Feeling the girl tremble under his hand, Naruto steeled his heart from it all. Iwa started this, not him. They were the ones to spit on his offer of friendship. Really simple actually. You call back your forces, immediately. When they return, you're to issue an announcement to your ninja and your civilians. Iwa is going to be Uzushio's vassal state from here on. You will follow my orders, cease all hostilities against other nations, and demilitarize yourselves. Seeing a frown begin to build on Inoki's face, Naruto just knew the old man would put up resistance. Have a little patience, Naruto. Trying, but I can't get the sight of Hinata in that tube out of my head. Oh no, I'm all for eviscerating the midget, but remember. Don't take out your anger on innocents. Any innocent. Naruto knew Kurama was including Kuretsuchi in that, and he would have to remind himself of it repeatedly. And what if I refuse such an obviously asinine demand? Inoki couldn't believe this. He'd be ceding the village to this brat without a fight. No contest at all. It was laughable. The boy might be strong, but the rest of his forces must be weak if he was willing to go this far. Naruto's grip around Kuretsuchi's neck tightened and a whimper escaped her throat. I guess I can name the crater that I'll make of this village after you or something. No skin off my nose in the end. It is here that Inoki feels some confidence enter his chest. The boy would never kill innocents, he wasn't the type. You won't do that. There are countless civilians here in the village. You won't stain your hands with their blood. You aren't the type. It was a fatal weakness that he and A had recognized right away. Too much Konoha in him. Naruto did have to nod at that, because it was the truth. Normally, you would be absolutely correct. But. Here his eyes turned cold, Rinnegan eyes glowing as his grip around Kuretsuchi's neck tightened a bit more. Except you hurt someone I love dearly. Nearly killed her at that. One of my most precious people. He had to ignore Kuretsuchi's tears as they trailed down her cheeks and onto his hand. You're also endangering my country, full of people I vowed to lay down my life to protect. That's a grave sin as far as I'm concerned. One that deserves a suitable punishment, don't you think? And is that not what you're doing now? Inoki was standing again, unable to tear his eyes away from his now fearful granddaughter. Don't shift blame, old man. You started this. Then let me finish it. Inoki thrust a hand forward, a white cube formed of his dust release finishing its construction and propelled towards Naruto, who already had a hand pointed towards him in return. Predictable. The overpowered Shinra Tensei obliterated the section of office Inoki had been standing in, desk, paperwork, and the two opposing men were rocketed away and out into the village. He watched as Inoki crashed through a building, toppling it over, before smashing into the street below. Releasing his hold on Kuretsuchi, where she coughed and hacked to catch her breath, he tossed her onto his shoulder and gathered wind around his form to float towards the downed Inoki. You're a monster. Kuretsuchi's voice was raspy, rough, from her treatment at his hands. Why do this? Why threaten to kill so many people? Don't make me repeat myself. Naruto sighed as he floated over the building's rubble and came to a stop just before the struggling Inoki. You can try and hide behind your ignorance all you like. But you know as well as I do just what your grandfather gets up to. He isn't as terrible as the likes of A, but he's living in the past. A past I want to move the world away from. Naruto pulled her down and placed her gently at his side, though again on her knees. You need to see the truth. You aren't one of the kami. Who gave you the right to make that decision? I did. And that's more than enough. Naruto had to lean back as Akatsuchi whizzed by him, fist trailing chakra. Inoki was as well already on his feet and hands molding chakra for most likely another deadly dust technique. Naruto grabbed Akatsuchi by the ankle, halting his movement before spinning and using his body as a bludgeon to smash Inoki away again, incidentally towards the village square. Casually tossing Akatsuchi away again and ignoring the explosion of dust and rock, Naruto grabbed Kuratsuchi by the back of her shirt and dragged her along. You've been blinding yourself willfully. Ignoring what your village has done in the name of pride and honor. Time for you to see what that leads to. Inoki struggled to stand, bleeding from a wound on his forehead and struggling to catching his breath. Such strength. Was this the power of the Kyuubi unleashed? He needed to warn everyone. More of that unseen force drove him down into the ground. Immobilized, two clones raced in to slap seals on his back to lock away his chakra. Vision and senses dimming, Inoki was left helpless as he took in his people watching him from around the square. Each was accompanied by a glowing clone, but none of them were making a move towards or away from him. Gritting his teeth, he turned his eyes to the demon-given human form. You won't win. Sighing as he once more came to a stop before the old man, Naruto put Kuratsuchi down next to him once more. Kami, don't you get it? It's not about winning or losing. This isn't some game. People's lives depend on our decisions, good or bad. We can't so casually decide that we can toss those lives away. Taking a deep breath to steady himself, Naruto shakes his head and gives up trying to get through to Inoki. It just wasn't going to happen. Instead, he mentally links with his clones, so they can spread his message to everyone in Iwa, whether they wanted to hear it or not. I have been working, all this time towards peace. I traveled the nations, rooted out evil, saved people regardless of nationality. I did not care if you were from Konoha, Iwa, or Kumo. If people needed saving, I saved them. And yet here. You Inoki, you are ready to start a war against me. Against my people. For what? Pride? Hatred of my father? Well. Now you have a choice. Naruto held a hand towards Kuratsuchi's head. You choose. Kuratsuchi, Iwa, or your Jinchuriki. One has to die. Inoki could feel himself nearly vibrate in place as he tried and failed to force his chakra to respond to him. How could he be forced to choose? Kuro-chan over the village? This couldn't be the same lackadaisical boy that he had met at the Kage summit. Just couldn't be. Kuratsuchi trembled, watching her grandfather wrestle with the decision. An impossible one in the end. Please Naruto Uzumaki-sama, please don't do this. Kuratsuchi turned to look up at the frog-eyed young man. This is something evil men do. Orochimaru would do this. That pain guy would do this. Inoki nodded as well, seeing the angle the girl was taking. Your village's own Danzo wasn't even this heartless. See some reason, boy. You can't go through with this. Naruto had to admit, Inoki wasn't wrong. If Inoki did finally call his bluff, Naruto would eventually fold. He wouldn't kill Iwa citizens. The opinions of a dead man mean nothing to me. Besides, I'm not doing anything. This is all your choice. You chose to provoke me. To harm my family, to attack my home. This is just a proportional response to that. Now choose. Iwa. Your Jinchuriki. Or your granddaughter. Naruto let go of Kuratsuchi, only to instead encase her in a bubble barrier that had a slightly purplish glow. One of his strongest outside of those made for Biju. Nothing would be getting in or out, not even air. Watching Kuratsuchi scream and pound against the barrier where no sound was escaping, Inoki struggled to his knees. You'll never know peace after this, boy. The barrier began to shrink, and Inoki's sweat began to fall faster. Every waking hour will be haunted by our ghosts. The guilt from this will weigh you down till you die screaming to the next upstart who lusts for power. Naruto rolled his eyes and emotion from his hands sees the barrier shrink further, Kuratsuchi beginning to scrunch into a ball. You're the one dragging this out now, Inoki. What am I to do? Let you kill my people? Kill me? Do you truly believe only Iwa matters in this world? Arrogant. Eye flashing once, Naruto waggled a finger at the older man. Tick-tock Inoki, choose or lose everything. Around them every Naruto clone unseals a completely black scroll, and while the civilians don't understand what is at stake, Inoki certainly does. Coming to the conclusion that there was no getting out of this, Inoki feels rage settle in his heart. This was how it was to end for him, was it? He supposed he could admit now that he made a blunder to underestimate the boy. No. Naruto. No. Okay. Take me. I am this village's leader, I gave the orders. Lay my sins at my feet, not theirs. Can you at least honor that? Naruto's eyebrows rose in surprise, so the old bastard could be reasonable. Go figure. I suppose I can't ignore a leader taking ownership of his failures. Honestly, I like that sort of thing. Around them all of the Narutos seal away their scrolls while Naruto himself drops the barrier around Kuratsuchi. She's dumped on the dirt, coughing and hacking from the lack of air inside the barrier. Instead, now a new barrier forms around Inoki, while Kuratsuchi watches on after catching her breath. No. This isn't fair. Kuratsuchi again struggled to her knees, a Naruto clone coming up to restrain her. We did nothing wrong. Every other village would have done the same if given the chance. Even yours. Naruto started to walk up to the barrier holding Inoki, noting the resigned look on the older man's face. Then why haven't they? Turning to face her calmly, he took in her tear-streaked face. Why haven't I? I never marched on Kumo even though they tortured and killed my family members. I never marched on Konoha for stealing from me or using me. I haven't marched on Kiri for assisting in the destruction of the original Uzushio. No, Kuratsuchi, granddaughter to the Tsuchikage. The world has changed, you've just refused to see it. Just like you refused to admit that your leader chose wrong. Turning back to walk up to the barrier, Naruto held up a hand to it to allow Inoki to be heard. Who shall take over the village in your place? Kuro-chan will. She has what it takes, she'll do just fine. Inoki decided that it was too bad really. He had wanted to retire in style. Maybe to a beach with a lot of cute little ladies. Heh. Guess he should have given up the chair a long time ago. This could have been someone else's problem. Kuratsuchi shook her head slowly as the barrier around Inoki began to glow. Please Naruto. Don't do this. We'll pull back like you said. Demilitarize like you ordered. Anything. Just please don't make me watch my grandfather die. She wanted to scream, rage, fight. Anything more than be stuck sealed and helpless against this fate. None of it seemed too important now. Hunting Naruto down for her rematch. The egotistical plotting and scheming. Faced with the consequences, she'd take it all back if she could. Naruto turned once more back to her, keeping his hand to the glowing barrier. And would you offer me mercy? If the roles were reversed? Would I have spared my people once they breached our borders? We both know the answers to those questions, don't we? But, we. Kuratsuchi watched her grandfather shake his head slowly. Hold your head up with pride, Kuro-chan. Iwa is the heart of stone. We persevere, endure. So too can you do the same. Inoki turned dead eyes to Naruto. Don't drag this out any longer, boy. If you're going to end me. End me. As you wish, Inoki of both scales. With a thought, Naruto commanded the barrier to shrink. No. Grandfather. Kuratsuchi didn't finish her sentence, watching as the barrier shrank rapidly down to the size of a chickpea. From there the now bright white ball floated before Naruto, before disintegrating away with a whisper. Watching the motes of light dance on the wind, Kuratsuchi couldn't stop her tears from falling. Nor did she react as the real Naruto walked over to squat down in front of her to look her in the eye. Look. I'm going to say this once, and make myself real clear here. Naruto made sure her eyes slowly latched onto him, accepting that there was nothing but hate for him in her heart with ease. With this, I'm letting Iwa alive. By extension, I'm letting you live. But I no longer have the patience for how your village has been doing things, so here's the deal. You so much as breath wrong. One person so much as gets a broken bone due to an Iwa ninja's actions, and I will wipe your village off the face of the earth. This is the only warning you are going to get. I will make Iwa a footnote in history everyone will forget. Never. Blinking slowly, digesting the fact that her grandfather really was gone. That she had witnessed him die in such a horrible manner. Kuratsuchi felt a heat and fire in her chest like no other before. She thought she hated the Yuzukage before? No. This was magnitudes greater than anything she had ever felt. I'll never let anyone forget just what you've done. Tears staining her face, dirt smudged on her cheek, Kuratsuchi cared only that Naruto understood that he made an enemy that would be waiting for a single chance for the rest of his days. Sighing and understanding what she was feeling, Naruto stood and put his hands in his pockets. Just remember, I never would have been here had you lot had just left me alone. Idly, he leans to the side as an injured Akatsuchi barrels past him, fist outstretched to strike him once more. With little effort, he reaches out, snagging the man's collar, to slam him down into the dirt. With a sigh, he unseals his sword and holds it to the large man's neck. Welp, first order is Tsuchikage, I suppose. Make him stand down, or I'll kill him. It's not right. You're the one that preached that we can talk to one another, didn't you? This is monstrous. You're a monster. A demon. Kuratsuchi shook as the large sword dug into the ground next to the groaning Akatsuchi's neck. There was blood beginning to pool on the ground. Akatsuchi, stand down. But he. I don't care. Stand down. Watching the man go limp, Kuratsuchi turned pleading eyes towards Naruto. There, see, we won't fight. Not anymore. Why would they try? It was like fighting against the very kami. Nodding and picking up his sword, he laid it to rest on his shoulder. The clones will stay for a few days, but they'll be out of the way and out of sight. Have your ninja turn in their weapons here to the village square. You aren't allowed to have anything more than a defensive force from now on. 200 ninja, max. The rest are to retire and find something else to do. You're ending us. You may not be destroying the village, but one way or another, we're done if we agree. Kuratsuchi's voice was quiet, eyes locked onto the space where Inoki used to be. Probably, but that's not my problem. Naruto heaved a sigh as this was not something he would normally do. But Iwa and Kumo had pushed him. Too far it seemed. I'm going to kill your Jinchuriki. Then we're going to eliminate your forces marching towards us. After that I'll return, and you and I will discuss what happens next. Kuratsuchi scrubbed her face, feeling the seals holding her chakra burn away from her. Know that I hate you, Naruto Uzumaki. You'll burn in hell for this one day, and I hope to be the one to see you off on your journey there. Naruto turns tired eyes to the distraught woman, nodding along with her thoughts. Oh, I know I'm destined for the fire, have been for a while. But at least I can live with the things I've done or are going to do. Can you and yours say the same? Watching her blink in confusion, he flashed away with a whisper. Watching Naruto's clones meander off, some poofing away and some simply vanishing from sight, Kuratsuchi turned to the panting and struggling Akatsuchi. I have to make this right. One day I dash, the clone holding her let her go, its voice a bare whisper on the wind. Learn from your predecessor's mistakes and focus on your village for now. Unless you're looking to sharing his fate early. And then it was gone. Akatsuchi shook his head slowly. We'll have our chance. One day. Kuratsuchi nodded, struggling to her feet as the village around her rose into an outroar of noise. One day. A sentiment she didn't fully feel, but one that she would hold deep in her heart for as long as she would live. Scene change, we could have a lot more fun settling this over a jug of sake instead. Jiraiya quipped as he avoided several slashes from B's erratic sword technique. Who in their right mind juggled swords? Why would you consider that a good idea? He was even holding one in his blasted mouth. Somehow against all logic, Jiraiya blamed Naruto. This was his level of idiocy. B was grinning as he and the sage flitted about the trees, dancing about with his swords as he twirled and kept up a constant attack pattern to keep the elder ninja on his toes. He knew better than to give Jiraiya even a breath of time to plan. I have my duty to fulfill, my man, I'm sure you can understand. Jiraiya grumbled as he tried to anchor himself to a branch with his feet in order to swing down and hopefully get behind the biju container. No luck there, as B was quick to follow along with his tactic, now both of them battling upside down. Oh sure, I understand completely that your village wants to wipe out my godson's nation. Completely reasonable. Jiraiya ducked under a rather close shave from a katana, a few locks of hair floating away on the wind. As a fellow hermit, don't you think we have a better option? Crossing his arms over his chest to block a kick from B, Jiraiya released his chakra and let himself be knocked away to the forest floor. He needed the breather room. There are no options for us though, unless you're willing to fight against my broyo. B followed after the elder ninja, launching several swords his way and watching as each pierced the ground as Jiraiya easily danced away. I'm gonna have to get serious it seems. I don't like the sound of that. Jiraiya huffed as Shima knocked him in the head with a webbed hand. Stop playing around boy, he's going to kill you if you don't get serious. You think I'm not? Digging his back foot into the ground and augmenting his legs further with chakra, Jiraiya launched himself forward while a Rasengan blossomed into his hand. Best to end this quickly, before the Kumo Jinchuriki decided to go full Biju mode on him. Thrusting the swirling ball of death forward, B blocked him with 3 swords crossed over his chest. The swords shattering and peppered B's skin with metal shards while propelling him backwards a few paces. Jiraiya tried to follow up with another hastily made Rasengan, but B jumped away, grinning and chakra beginning to tinge red and leak from his pores. Well shit. You knew it wasn't going to be so easy peasy, right? B grinned further as he kept a step ahead of Jiraiya, both men dashing between the trees in an effort to kill one another. B needed a few moments to charge up and transform however, so was happy to draw things out. I'll end you with my Biju, and we'll make our way through. Is this really how it has to be? Yuzushiya wants peace. I know you can see it. They'd done nothing to threaten you. Hell, Naruto could have nuked you for what you did with his clan, and yet he hasn't. Why go through with this and guarantee that he'll be forced to up his response? A paper seal appeared between Jiraiya's fingers, stiffened with chakra, before he threw it with all his might. It latched onto B's chest with ease, the other fighter not worried about such a simple-looking tag. His mistake, as his demonic chakra began to leak away. This serves no one at all. Not even Kumo. B hastily removed the tag, grin turning down into a frown as his chakra went haywire. He should have figured that the old man would have a counter with Biju chakra. He had watched over the QB after all. Your bleeding is useless, now come on and get your beating. 3 swords destroyed, 4 swords a dozen meters away and stuck in the ground, he needed to buy some time. Jiraiya shook his head and he and B continued to dash back and forth between the trees, finally deciding that B wasn't wrong. Talking at this point was useless. Let's go, Ma, Pa. I need some wind and some oil. Shima sighed but nodded as she began to mold chakra of her own. On it. B was quick to perform a short-range shunshin as the tree he had been in and several surrounding it were nearly vaporized in a conflagration of combined fire, wind and frog oil. Well, he really didn't want to get caught by one of those. You alright, partner? Ready to go again? I've flushed our chakra, so we're good to go. Don't get hit by that seal again. Of course. Jiraiya was closing in, a new and larger Rasengan blossoming to life in his hand with his sage chakra added in. This is it, Killer B. He could see his own reflection in B's glasses, along with the wide smirk that grew on the darker man's face. The area exploded in an outpouring of crimson chakra, Jiraiya just barely catching himself from flying through the air, launched away from the hostile Jinchuriki. Eyeing the charred and cleared space between the trees, a few 100-meter diameter space was now host to a chuckling and wide-eyed combination bull/octopus chakra entity that had Jiraiya sighing and cracking the joints in his neck. Within the Biju, B felt a new confidence well in his chest. Well-toed hermit? What now? A large hand came crashing down into the space the white-haired sage used to be, upturning earth and debris while Jiraiya was already away and making hand seals. Doton, Yominuma. Hands down on the ground, Jiraiya watched the earth under the Biju quickly change into a swampy quagmire that its large mass began to sink into. Struggle all you want, you aren't getting out. Don't need to. Tentacles shot out, uprooting trees and tossing them Jiraiya's way, forcing him to run and dodge and evade. Think we can set up a frog song? Behind Jiraiya, another tree crashed down and splintered like a wooden bomb, peppering him with bark and leaves. Think you can sit still long enough for us to get started? Fukasaku sighed as he and Shima looked to each other and nodded. Without the suppression seal made for the Biju, you're going to have to best him in straight combat. Oh joy, just what I wanted to do today. Fight a Biju one-on-one. Sighing and shaking his head, Jiraiya kept on the move as B worked his way out of the swamp. I think a few Rasengan and some toad fire will shake him up. Enough to put another suppression seal on him. Shima agreed, get ready for my melodious voice then boyo. B chuckled as he began to gather dense chakra in his mouth. I don't have time to play with you, it's been real Toad Sage. Feeling the massive buildup of chakra, Jiraiya prepared to desummon himself back to the Toad realm. Better that after all, than to be taken out here. He was not prepared for the tsunami of sand that rose up and washed over the Eight Tails, burying it and cutting off its technique. Sighing with relief, Jiraiya turns to the Kazekage, who dropped to the charred ground next to you. I could kiss you. Please don't, Matsuri would be most upset. Allowing a small grin to show on his face, Gaara joined Jiraiya in facing off against the other Jinchuriki. We received word that Iwa and Kumo were making a move against Yuzu, so we came to help. Jiraiya nods as the elders on his shoulder prepare for their genjutsu. Good. I only need one shot and I'll put him down. Watching as a burst of chakra scattered the sand and revealed the Eight Tails, the sage prepared to re-engage his target. Seeing himself outnumbered and knowing better, B punched the ground to create a massive smokescreen. Better luck next time, Toad Sage. Running for all he was worth, dropping his Biju form in his haste, he had to hope that Team Samui would be alright. Feeling the Jinchuriki's chakra quickly leave the area, Jiraiya had to hand it to him. He really could run when he wanted. Whoa, glad that's over. This is a young man's game, I'm getting too old for this. Gaara nods and turns to face the elder ninja. Perhaps you should slow it down then. Maybe actually consider retirement. Chuckling, Jiraiya nods along as both ninja begin to walk away from the battlefield, probably right there. Would give me more time to try and Wutsuchan. Easily the sage let Shima and Fukasaku remove themselves from his shoulders, waving them off as they poofed away back home. He was sure he would be getting an earful from them later. So why are you here, Gaara? Naruto sent you? Shaking his head, Gaara walked along while the sand he had used reformed into his customary gourd. I spoke the truth. Suna received word that Iwa was up to something and Kumo might be involved. I came to hunt down the largest chakra signature I could find and found you. That's troubling. Jiraiya had a hand to his chin as he thought about that. Wasn't Iwa's Jinchuriki supposed to be involved as well? Han is MIA. I've sent Kankuro and Temari with a platoon of ninja towards Uzushio to assist. If anyone can find the missing Iwa ninja, it's them. Shaking his head, Jiraiya stretched and leapt to the trees. Something doesn't feel right with all this. Let's hurry and get back to Yuzu. Right behind you. Gaara had to agree, something was deeply wrong. A feeling was in the air that had his heart antsy. Scene change, fingers drummed along the top of a wood surface in a staccato as Tayuya sat on the edge of Naruto's desk and kept watch out of his window. She was doing her best to ignore the empty chair, but she wasn't ready to take his place just yet. This was an emergency, and they all had their roles to play right now. Behind her, Ino and Karen sat in chairs opposite the desk, both keeping silent but watching the fiery redhead with some worry. Both were nearly ready to jump out of their skin, worry in their hearts after Naruto gave them a smile and a wave to left with the terrified Kuratsuchi in hand. What was he going to do? Would he fare alright against that such a kid on his home turf? So many questions, but the only one who could answer them was long gone. This left Ino biting her nails, while Karen checked and rechecked her supplies. Behind the group and sitting off to the side, Sasuke and Sakura lounged about without much concern. Sasuke was resting with bandages over his eyes, though no one questioned why it was easy enough for him to get around unassisted. Sakura however held up a hand. You all know that he's going to be okay. He'll be back before you know it. Grunting but stopping her finger tapping, Tayuya turned an eye back to her husband's teammates. I'm not worried about him coming back. He promised that he would. Silence stretches on as Sakura gives her a knowing look and Tayuya blushes, but turns away. The asshole just owes me a whole lot of cuddles. And he promised I didn't have to take the chair this time. Rolling her eyes, Ino stood and walked over to her co-wife, hugging her gently and smiling as the redhead relaxed into her a bit. So what are you worried about? Maybe. What sort of Naruto will be coming back then? Ino couldn't shake the thought that something had been changing in Naruto recently. She couldn't put her finger on it 100%, but it was beginning to worry her. Watching Tayuya sigh but not respond, Sakura pipes up as they watch several ninja jump over the rooftops below on a patrol route. What do you mean by that? Naruto is Naruto. Sure, he's a little explosion obsessed, but he's our usual knucklehead as always. Ino shook her head. You didn't see Naruto when he left with Kuratsuchi. Ino paused as her eyes looked off into the distance, mind lost in the memory. Something in his eyes was different. He was different. She didn't want to label it as murderous. Resolute maybe? Like he had accepted something that he really didn't want to. Karen relaxed back into her chair, a smile on her face. I don't know. For his faults in this, Naruto is showing a lot of restraint in this. Seeing everyone turn her way, the shorter redhead shrugged. Think about it. Hinata was injured. Iwa and Kumo are making way for us with scouts and some light forces. And all of this is right after we just attended the Kage summit. That he didn't execute her right away and fly off to bomb their village says a lot. Ino looks up to the ceiling in thought before nodding slowly. Well, you aren't wrong. But even so, something has changed in him. Sighing and adjusting himself, the only male of the group groaned. It's really simple if you stop overthinking it all. Feeling all of the girls turn to face him, Sasuke rolled a hand in the air. What has Naruto been fanatical about above everything else? All of the girls stopped to think about it, before Karen snapped her fingers. Explosions? Shaking his head, Sasuke was smirking. Of course not. That's just a hobby. To him, it's family. You girls specifically. He is willing to go to hell and back for each and every one of you. The thought of one of you being in danger because of him just isn't something he can sit with. Ever. Feeling the energy of the room change, Sasuke assumed they were beginning to see the issue here. Seeing Hinata hurt, I'm sure if Naruto decided Iwa had to be bombed back to the Stone Age and Kumo needs to be stomped into submission. Well. He's going to do it with a clear conscience, because it'll mean you all will be safe. But, we don't want him to give up on peace, just for us. Tayuya's voice was quiet, while Sasuke nodded with understanding. That's the thing, he isn't changing. It's always been there, there's just never been a reason to go this far. Sasuke pointed downward towards the floor. More specially, towards where they all knew Hinata was resting and healing, but now he has a reason to do something a bit more drastic. Ino shook her head while her grip on Tayuya tightened a bit. I hope not. I don't want him to go overboard for this. Iwa has to answer for this, but he wouldn't or shouldn't destroy an entire village over this. There are a lot of innocent people there. Tayuya shrugged in her arms. How innocent are they though? Naruto is a known threat to them. The son of their greatest enemy. You know how our citizens can get. Imagine them? Karen sighed, a worried look focused on the floor between her legs. I'd rather not. It makes peace seem so far out of reach. Sakura relaxed and gave Sasuke a pointed look. It might be right now. Iwa and Kumo are just spoiling for a fight. And we're ready to give it to them. We? Tayuya was grinning as she eyed the pinkette. Really have shrugged off that Konoha loyalty, haven't you? Sakura waved her off. I'm loyal to what's important. This is my family. I go where they go. You can say that again, forehead. Ino was grinning as Sakura gave her the finger. Some things never changed. Silence did not stretch for long, as with a muted flash Naruto was back in the office, injury-free and pointedly alone. Shoulders sagging as he walked around his desk, with a groan he dropped into his chair and held a hand out to Tayuya. Eyes wide, she walked towards him and allowed herself to be dragged into his arms. How bad? Tayuya was already assuming that he had wiped the village off the map. He looked so drained. I had to kill the Tsuchikage. Inoki. Kuratsuchi is the new Tsuchikage now, and Iwa is going to be a vassal of ours from here on. Naruto relayed all of the details of just what happened while he was gone in Iwa. He was thankful that everyone sat and listened quietly to the end, and wasn't surprised that it was Sakura that held her hand up first. What's up, sis? Are you okay? Naruto didn't have to think about that. No. Everyone gave him time, eyes on him as he collected his thoughts and gently held Tayuya in his lap. I've been really honest about my hope for peace between the villages. But I needed to learn from the mistakes of the past. Uzushiya once trusted the other nations to honor treaties and alliances. That saw us destroyed and scattered. These days I know that unless we want to meet the same fate, we have to defend ourselves. And sometimes that means striking out at those who would end us if they could. Naruto thought back. The look of rage and loss on Kuratsuchi's face. Knowing without a doubt that there would never be any love there. Hell, even just acceptance was out of reach for them now. But compliance? Yeah, they would have that. I'm going to have to hit Kumo next. Not personally at least, but they'll have to learn as well that we aren't the same village they ganged up on in the past. Sasuke nodded and stood, grinning with his covered eyes. So, what's the plan and when do we head out? Sakura rolled her eyes and pulled her man back down into his seat. Slow your roll there, you're still healing. I feel great. It's the painkillers. Naruto smiled gently and relaxed a bit more. No plan. We let Uzushio forces do their thing. I can't be everywhere at once, and I have to be ready to intercept Iwa's Jinchuriki at a moment's notice. I can feel be running back to Kumo, so I expect Jiraiya to be here soon. Another chakra signature was with him. Gaara is coming too. Ino rolled her eyes. That means the fangirl is coming. Karen giggled. You like Temari? She's fun. Naruto grunted. Hey. Seeing everyone turn back his way, Naruto suddenly felt very naked. Let's talk later. I have some stuff to get off my chest. Tayuya was the one to lean into him, gently kissing his cheek before shimmying her way free and standing. You know we'll be here. We'll talk tonight, so hopefully Hinata can join us. Naruto finally smiled. Alright. Good. For now, let's get to work, and hope our forces hold strong. Tayuya was grinning as she walked back towards Karen. Did I forget to mention I sent out Deidara with the border patrol group? Seeing Naruto's surprised look, she realized she must have. Whoops. Kami save whoever runs into him. Scene changed. Deidara was grinning from ear to ear while behind him a frowning An and a tired-looking Gosu waited in turn. Before them in a wooded area they had stumbled upon a forward scout group from Iwa, a group that Deidara was previously had been very familiar with. One that knew him both on sight and by reputation, if the trembling they were doing was any indication. We're envoys from Iwa. If you'll just let us, na. Deidara threw up a hand, teeth gleaming in the sun. Oh woe for those who would lie through their teeth before the land of our savior. Think we would not know your plots, your plans? Your plot plans. Deidara pointed at the group of a dozen with wide eyes. You've injured a member of the royal family. Your lives are forfeit. En sighed and turned to Gosu. Should we rein him in? Gosu shook his head and cracked his neck, eyes shifting into their own Ketsuryugen. Nah, I've got a bone to pick with them myself anyway. Rolling his eyes as he threw up his hands, and turned to jump into the trees. At least don't go overboard. Deidara had already surrounded himself with dozens of flying birds and scuttling spiders, all made of clay. In the words of our leader, there's no such thing. And the world erupted into explosions. Oh make this is heavenly. Uzushio hot springs are certainly worth the trip. Shizen could admit that while it had taken some convincing to get herself and Kakashi here in Uzushio, if there was one thing she regretted it might be that she didn't make the move sooner. A warm sun, fun beaches, and a carefree attitude made for a wonderful living situation. Plus, there were plenty of familiar faces here with her, and the hospital here had hired her nearly on the spot. You said it. Only thing that'd help might be Iruka being here. Or Naruto, if I can ever get him and Iruka badly drunk enough. Anko cackled at the looks being sent her way. Yes, Iruka was the love of her life, but she owed Naruto more than she could ever repay in a single lifetime. So what was a night or two of intense fun? She'd wager that he wouldn't complain, same with Iruka once she convinced him some. You are horrible. Giggling in spite of herself, Ayam hadn't expected to join the ninja pair in the Yuki baths. But Shizen had spotted her and then Anko had dragged her along after she had closed up shop. That of course led to their last occupant. Everything okay, Lady Tsunami? I haven't had a chance to check on you since that Itachi incident. Tsunami was all smiles as she enjoyed a cup of sake poured by Anko, the heat of the spring water starting to get to her. Oh, I'm just wonderful. Naruto made sure I was fine and taken care of. Anko was leering as she wiggled her eyebrows. Sae, what is going on between you and Naruto anyway? Everyone can tell that there's something there. Far be it from her to judge for an older woman preying on such a young man. They all had to find happiness somewhere. So long as they were too young. Shaking her head while a massive blush built on her face, Tsunami giggled. Oh no, I couldn't. I made a promise. Shizen held out a hand to Anko. Let's not talk about this. You know they're just really close. He saved her family after all. Anko nodded and crossed her arms. Oh, of course, of course. Even still, that doesn't mean that something can't have happened. Ayam rolled her eyes and passed the sake to the ponytailed woman. You'd think if anyone would know what's going on it'd be me. If I haven't heard something, then there's nothing there. Ayam did turn a grin towards the smiling Tsunami however, though I have heard a little birdie talk about some visits to the Zosencho clan pretty often. Tsunami nodded, thoroughly out of it. Celia is a lot of fun when she isn't working. And she has such good tips. Tsunami somewhat admired the dark-skinned beauty, and she was a good listener. Anko laid back into the water and sank to her shoulders. Oh, no fun. I was hoping for some juicy gossip. Looking around and taking in the time, Shizun sighed and began to stand. We should probably head out. Tsunami isn't going to last much longer. Anko took in her fellow ninja, and then the two, maybe, civilians, and nodded. Tsunami did look a few head bobs away from passing out, and I had just been working all day long. Alright, but you owe me a good party soon. Shizun nodded as she helped the older woman from the bath. I'll have Kakashi invite Irika one of these days. All four women took their time getting out, changing back into their clothes with light banter and easy smiles. Grateful that they could enjoy these easy and peaceful days. Much like the land of hot waters, they hoped that Yuzu could earn such a reputation one day. So many beaches and vacation spots deserved to be shared. Anko was grinning as she took the lead and opened the door to the changing room. That reminds me, how did you convince that Cyclops to finally settle down anyway? You broke a lot of girls' hearts when you and he went speech trailing off. All of the women minus a sagging over her shoulder Tsunami paused as they took in the sight before them. The sight before them was just, somehow, out of place. Tsunade sighed, mind whirling and praying that she could salvage this. The taller man next to her, freezing in place with his arm over her shoulders, but thankfully not saying a word. Ladies. Anko and the others all bowed to her, Lady Tsunade. Blinking several times in quick succession, her mind tried and failed to make sense of it, before finally deciding it wasn't worth it. Tsunade sighed and couldn't fight off the blush from her cheeks as the man next to her began to chuckle. A fist to the ribs did little to shut him up either. I hope we can keep this between us. Yes? Shizun nodded quickly, of course Lady Tsunade. Nodding and turning away, she continued on her way, then you ladies have a good night. Soon she was gone, her and her companion disappearing towards the shared couple's baths. I looked towards Anko and Shizun, wanting to squeal, but also knowing she might be signing her death warrant. That was that. Shizun shushed her quickly, no. We saw nothing. Nothing at all. We didn't recognize them. Anko was leering as she straightened out Tsunami on her shoulder and started to walk again. I'm so not drunk enough for this. Tsunami giggled, eyes unfocused. Lord Jiraiya looks good in a robe. Not as good as Naruto though. Those abs. Can we call him? Inari deserves a younger sibling or three. Anko, and Shizun all exchanged a look before sighing and decided to leave. Crossed her arms under her bust. I'm so dragging that out of Naruto later on. Anko nodded, call me, I'll join in on the ribbing.